just gonna keep it real. Yeah, how I live. I might speak that slang, but got that word. Yo, I can still pull up where I served in. They watching my moves, they observing. Steam my brother, it's whatever for you. I'ma serve. Gotcha. What you need? I might speak that slang, but got that word. Yo, I can still pull up where I served in. They watching my moves, they observing. Steam my brother, it's whatever for you. I'ma serve. I'm standing right here, you can crucify me. I'll forever be a voice for the voiceless. Hang with the Lord, you can get on. Hang some my haters, who they put on. Do this for the Lord, we don't put on. And we lay down the blueprint, and we following the red plane. Put a blue letter, re-reference. No blood or Crips, y'all brothers repent. You know the vibes when we bump shows. No, we going up, but don't speak on. Know what I'm on in real time. And we too lit for lies. The box they living lies. Don't need your criticize. Never met him one time, but my name in his mind. One more time, gotta remind. To stop the COVID, they wild. I might speak that slang, but got that word. Yo, I can still pull up where I served in. They watching my moves, they observe. Steam my brother, it's whatever for you. I'ma serve. I might speak that slang, but got that word. Yo, I can still pull up where I served in. They watching my moves, they observe. Steam my brother, it's whatever for you. I'ma serve. Yo.
Yeah. What you cooking?
Yeah. This one probably got the angel jamming in the chairs. You call him Jesus, I call him Yahweh. It don't come from the script, it's telling Yaliyah. Yahweh Bashim, Yahweh Shah Hamashiach. Big Jews in the name and they scared of us. Break bread with the heathen, I'd rather not. China want war, Russia want war. Babylon, see your time is running out. Yeah, I done read Isaiah, Jeremiah, Daniel. I feel like I'ma see the King David. I've been cursed since birth, hung with the wrong niggas, uncircumcised. I ate from the wrong table. Was confused before, ain't read the script, and you could tell. I swore it was all fake till I realized how history disappeared. It was coded by a world that won't save you. Yahweh gon' make sure we get it. Lord willing, I get it. Lord willing, I see the day. That's why I ain't trimming on my beard, just trimming on these beards with these fringes on my waist. I don't care about images, just care about building up and enduring through my faith. I don't care about images, I just care about building up and enduring through my faith. I will never forget thy precepts, for with them thou hast quickened me. I am thine, save me. I am thine, save me. I will never forget thy precepts, for with them thou hast quickened me. I am thine, save me. I am thine, save me.
I will never forget thy precepts, oh no, no, oh no. Most High willing, I keep that frame of thought. And that's most High willing. Everyday battling flesh, getting ready for the war. That's why I gotta repent, pray fast, move on. I am thine, save me, because thine enemies make a tumult, play the schemes. That's why the world waxing weak, gave up the world and the we to serve the Lord as my King. We got the faith, yeah, we believe. Sooner than later, you gon' see. Every eye shall see, every knee shall bow. Wow, that's power. If you fit the curses in Deuteronomy well, that power is ours. Time is running out if you rain on the boat like the days of Noah. 2 Peter 3 and 6, go to 7. Work out your salvation, gave me the precepts. I pray that I live by them, running this race. Pray I'm enduring to the end. Pray I'm enduring to the end. Work out your salvation, gave me the precepts. I pray that I live by them, running this race. Pray I'm enduring to the end. Pray I'm enduring to the end.
Came to the conclusion. Alright, man, what you think? Talk to me. It's nothing we can fix in this world. cause I'm new in this truth. Had to change my ways and the things that I do. The world start tripping when you start wearing fringes. Your friends go missing and your fam won't listen. They say that I changed cause I'm doing things different. Instead of following the pastor, prefer to follow scriptures. Tired of being attentive to opinions. If you insert into the word, you are sinning. Telling me how this world works with no chapter or verse. I done did bad, I ain't trying to do worse. But sir, you can do whatever you like. I prefer to follow these books and wait on Christ. And it's a battle each day. Gotta read his word and do what it say. Make sure I don't sin. Matthew 24:13 and do it to the end. I pray that my family's great. Be in one accord with his word one day. Until you come back to this place, I'm gonna spread your word and do it and wait. 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 Yeah. And I ain't doing things my way. I'ma wait like a line on Black Friday, or like a cashier when it's closing time, or like the last day in the voting line. Technology's so advanced, but we so behind. Closed off the people with an open mind. I can read red letter and they say I'm lying. I know it's bad, but at times I get tired of trying. I be trying to force them to see in reality. Just the past year they was me. But the best way to help them understand it, seeing my actions, following these commandments. 6, 1, 3, it's a battle each day. Gotta read his word and do what it say. Make sure I don't sin. Matthew 24:13 and do it to the end. I pray that my family's great. Be in one accord with his word one day. Until you come back to this place, I'm gonna spread your word and do it and wait. 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 Do it and wait.
Shalom Israel, it's your Captain Shaquat of Northern House of Saints, here to give you the verse of the day. I'm going to go to Mark chapter 8 and verse 36. For what shall it profit a man if he shall gain the whole world and lose his own soul? You know, being an Israelite, right, you struggle a lot, you know what I'm saying? Well, just in life, you struggle, right? And everybody's always talking about, man, I just need more money, I need more money. Now, what if you won the lotto or something like that? How is that going to change you? Are you still going to be doing this work? Are you still going to, read your Bible? Are you still going to be teaching on the street? So forth and so forth, right? Just remember, man, we're going to go through so much stuff. We're going to struggle, right? But the grass isn't always greener on the other side. If you have more money and make more money, just make sure you don't lose your soul. Shalom.
AHOS. Shalom, Israel. It's Brother Gary from Northern House of Saints with the verse of the day. The book of 2nd Esdras, chapter 14, verse 14. Let go from the mortal thoughts. Cast away the burdens of man. Put off now the weak nature. So what the Most High is telling us is, don't let these burdens of the heathen get us down. We worry about a lot of stuff, how we gonna pay this, how this gonna get paid, who gonna take care of that. And the Most High is telling you, don't let that worry you. They're just gonna drain you. And now, wherever you go, you're carrying that negative attitude. But if you keep to the Most High and stay in these laws, statutes, commandments, He gonna lift you up every time. This is your brother Gary. Shalom, Israel. AHOS.
Shalom, Israel. This is Soldier James. Today's verse of the day is coming off the top of the head. You know, been on my spirit. It's coming from Ecclesiastes 7:29. And it says, "For lo, this only have I found, that the Most High God has made man upright, but they have sought out inventions." So basically what that's saying is, you know, God made us all perfect. He did make us upright. He made us all able to follow his laws, statutes, and commandments. But since we were young, we sought out inventions that we didn't have no clue about, and they corrupted us. Come out of those inventions, Israel. Shalom.
AHOS.
Brother Jonathan got bars, man. He got bars. But he always making slow music, man. Wanna pray to his music, meditate. He can't get hype, man. Sometimes I wanna get hype for the Lord. Come on, man.
Blood on the post, blood on the blood on the post, blood on the post, blood on the post, blood on the blood on the post, blood on the post, blood on the post, blood on the blood on the post, blood on the post, blood on the post, blood on the blood on the post. Blood on the post, blood on the blood on the post, blood on the post, blood on the post, blood on the blood on the post, blood on the post, blood on the post, blood on the blood on the post, blood on the post, blood on the post, blood on the blood on the post, blood on the post, keeping them close. Man, we got fringes and seats on the clothes. Me and my brothers ain't sleeping, we reading the secrets. The deepest you've been is the ocean. Now we've been swimming in waters that's deeper than rivers to Jordan. We creeping up on them. It's the 14th of the month. Bone Thugs one day late for the show. Oh. Ain't never been out, ever since Red Pen Pals. You too late, you let them in now. We like veterans, niggas us power. These secrets only come through steady, no regrets. We walk through water like Jesus. We raising the dead, you see this. Look at this evening pose. Blood on the post, blood on the blood on the post, blood on the post, blood on the post, blood on the blood on the post, blood on the post, blood on the post, blood on the blood on the post, blood on the post, blood on the post, blood on the blood on the post. Blood on the post, blood on the blood on the post, blood on the post, blood on the post, blood on the blood on the post, blood on the post, blood on the post, blood on the blood on the post, blood on the post, blood on the post, blood on the blood on the post.
We hold in post, chopping up doctrines, they ain't coming close. They had the three strikes like on Warner Franco. We're show toast, wisdom is better than silver and gold. This water is knocking down wicked Pharaoh. Can't swim through the sea, man, that fan was too slow. Pharaoh was sober-minded, think he can and go. Escape on a starry night, Victor Van Gogh. Living good unchained like Quincy Django. Sharpers down in the hood, now they wanna tango. Death angels coming close, so watch your back, bro. Watch your back, bro. We gonna that land, we gon' eat that. That better herb, we gon' eat that. Doing this till you how I come and see that. We that. Oh.
Blood on the post, blood on the blood on the post, blood on the post, blood on the post, blood on the blood on the post, blood on the post, blood on the post, blood on the blood on the post, blood on the post, blood on the post, blood on the blood on the post, blood on the post, blood on the blood on the post, blood on the post, blood on the post, blood on the blood on the post, blood on the post, blood on the post, blood on the blood on the post, blood on the post, blood on the post, blood on the blood on the post. The Pesach and Nissan. We found faith in Israel. We got to be strong. Walking through water, pray we don't sink. Strapped up, boots tight. Walking up right, boy, we don't lean. 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 Walking up right, we see that. Blood on the post. Blood on the blood on the post, blood on the post, blood on the post, blood on the blood on the post, blood on the post, blood on the post, blood on the blood on the post, blood on the post, blood on the post, blood on the blood on the post, blood on the post, blood on the blood on the post, blood on the post, blood on the post, blood on the blood on the post, blood on the post, blood on the post.
Shalom, 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 Israel, shalom. Welcome to another Milk Mondays. I am Officer Knock coming to you live and direct. Also, I got with me, let's see, I think Captain will be coming on a little bit later. But before we get started, I want to first give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, by Hashem and Mashiach Yahweh Shai, And I want to thank everyone for being in class and being here. And we love your diligence every Monday with Anointed House of Saints. I want to apologize. Don't have any video to show right now. I got some issues going on here technically with the video. But hey, that's not going to stop this. We're going to get class going. Hey, check it out. Before we get started with class, I want everybody to know, as always, Anointed House of Saints, we are Hebrew Israelite school. And because of that, we teach the Bible, right? Verbatim, sola scriptura. So we want you guys.
You can see me?
Yeah, I see you there. I see you.
Okay, you're making sure.
Shalom. Shalom. But we just want to make sure that everybody's being edified. So look, just do the smart thing, right? It says to study to show thyself approved, right? We need y'all to have your Bibles out and have your Apocrypha, which is the Bible. Also have your, your pens and your markers, and writing down all the information that's being absorbed here tonight in all these classes. And that's throughout the week, not just on Milk Mondays. All right. Also, a few announcements real quick. Any brothers who are wanting to build their brick and do the work, and you want to do the work with the Anointed House of Saints, you can do so by letting us know, by sending us an email at anointedhos@gmail.com. That's anointedhos@gmail.com. All right. Also, we have some events coming up, as you know, right? As you all know, we have our new moon coming up October 2nd. Just want to give out a few dates for reminders, right? Coming up, which will be Feast of Trumpets. Also, we have the Atonement October 11th, right? Recognizing the Day of Atonement on October 11th. And then also, Anointed House of Saints will be having our Tabernacles, which actually commences October 16th through the 20th. We will be gathering as a congregation, as a camp in North Carolina on October 17th through the 20th. Can't wait for that. Looking forward to that. All praises to the Most High, Lord willing that we're able to be able to all come together as commanded in the scriptures. Let's see, what else do we got? Was gonna give some shout outs to everybody, but I kind of figured we'll change it up a little bit. We want to get class started and not hold everybody too long tonight. So with that, I'm just gonna go ahead. Oh, I guess I should give the title of the class, right? That would make sense. Let's give the title of the class real quick. Tonight's title is When the Israelites, Danes, and Saxons Made White People Slavs. I'll see it that way. Slavs, all right? So we're going to see what Captain has in store. Without further ado, go ahead, Cap. It's all yours. It's all yours.
All right, y'all. Shalom. Shalom. Of course, like he said, we want to start by giving all praise, honor, and glory to the Most High Yahweh in the name of his son, Yahweh Shai, by Hashem Yahweh Shai, right? So, quick recap from last week before we get into this thing. So, last week we proved that Dan had close relations with Javan, which is Greece, right? Due to the land that they were given on the Joppa coast, which is how it started. You can read about that, Joshua 19. You can also read about how we traded Dan and Judah with Javan in the eyes of the Gentiles, right? Particularly going to Argos. You see that Ezekiel 27, 13 and 19, right? Which also fulfills Genesis 9 and 27, which talks about Japhet being in the tents of Shem, right? Us basically going back and forth with each other, them coming to our land, us going to their land, and us actually establishing kingdoms there, right? It started with the Danes, right? Or Dan, rather, establishing the coast of Cyprus, right? Or the island of Cyprus off the coast of Joppa, right? And then from there going to Argos as the DANES and actually living amongst Javan, right? This is how the Greek pantheon comes about. And the word Greek and the language Greek and everything Greek comes about with us actually in the land with Javan and the Mycenaeans, right? The Greek culture becomes the main culture in the land, right? And Greek becomes the lingua franca once we take over Javan and the Mycenaeans in 1100 BC, and they begin to call us the Dorians, right? Or the rest of the people in the land, rather, call us the Dorians. And from there, they continue to rule. We get Lacedaemon, and then, places like Macedon and Athens, all these different places that we're at until Philip pops up on the scene and takes us down, right? And then, as we know, after Philip, we got Alexander in the captivity, right? So, but we proved Hercules, you know, Heracles would be the real name, comes from the Hebrew word Heraclim or Heraclim, which is the plural word for traders or merchants, right? Which is what we were with Javan. So that was the name that they gave to our people. And they made this story off of the man that we told them about named Samson, right? He was Hercules. So we proved this. We even put the AI overview there. It says the Greek name Hercules may have originated from the Hebrew word Heraclim, which was the name of the merchantmen of the Danite tribe, right? Who came into contact with the Mycenaean world, which would have been the people living in the land of Javan. All right. We see that after we take over as the Dorians, Dan, that is, Judah, Benjamin, Levi pull up on the scene, right, as the Malceans in 1000 BC. And then we start to basically wreak havoc on Javan and all the other people that decided to come to that land, right? And we take that over. And together, us as the Mycenaeans and Danes, they go and populate other parts of Europe, right? Becoming Anglo-Saxons, Jutes, Gauls, Franks, all type of different things that we're gonna talk about today, right? In fact, and these are just a couple of the crests, right, that you'll see in Europe, and we'll go a little bit into this some more. As you see, we went into Germany, right? As the DANES, Dan goes and conquers Denmark and Scandinavia, right? Before then called Skansa, while Judah and Benjamin, they go up there and conquer parts of Germany along with other parts of Dan, right? Judah, Benjamin become Anglo-Saxons and Jutes, while Dan becomes the Danes and later the Franks after they have the Norman invasion, right? The language that they all speak together is a language that's no longer spoken called Gaelic. It's a mix of Indo-European, Greek, and Hebrew, right? And when you look it up, even AI will tell you that it's closely related to Hebrew, right? A Hebrew that was only spoken by people that went to Ireland, Scotland, and Wales, and England and stuff like that, right? That's why you have certain names like Northumbria and things like that that don't have anything to do with any other language on the face of the earth. It's because it's part Gaelic, right? And all those old English names and stuff like that, and part of the old German names as well, and the old Irish names, and so on and so forth. So, yeah, we got the German and the Gaelic here. This is it says there's much evidence to suggest Gaelic and Hebrew are similar, and no people in Germany, Ireland, or Scotland today speak those languages. Gaelic being a Celtic language, it shares similarities that other Indo-European languages don't share. Celtic also being a name that we took from people in the land, right? There were obviously tribes of Edomite Celtics, but there were also tribes of, Israelite Celtics, which we're kind of going to go into that a little bit today. We proved how they were the Vikings, right? Fingal and Dubgal. Fin is a word that you'll need to remember for this class again, right? We went over Dubgal being the word to describe the Danish Vikings, right? The Danes. All the Danes were considered Dubgal. Dub meaning black or dark, right? Dubgal meaning foreigners. When it was Dubginti, that was after Judah and Benjamin come to the land, and Dan comes from France and Scandinavia to take over England and Ireland and Scotland and Wales. And the Stuarts in them and the Navarres are, calling these dudes that they know are their brothers, but they're not particularly living within Christianity, right? They still kind of practicing a little bit of the Greek pantheon, which by then has been translated to what they call the god of the Danes or the gods of the Danes, right? Odin and so forth and so on, which would be Zeus and stuff like that, right? And Thor, which would be Hercules, right? So we get to go on from there. But and we spoke about how that goes on also last week with that word. Was it apotheosis? Yeah, apotheosis. Yeah, apotheosis. So apotheosis is the it is the process where the Greeks made us gods, right? We come into the land, we do some heroic stuff, or we tell them stories about the heroes from our people. Say, for example, Hercules or King David or something like that, right? Or Dan. And then they make a god out of it, right? So, yeah. And through that process, apotheosis, the person goes from a human or a demigod to an actual god. And once they become an actual god, they're immortalized in time, and people start to worship them as that god figure, which is how the Danish gods become the Danish gods, because they really take it from the Greek pantheon that the Greeks started while they were in the land, which we went over that last week as well. So, yeah, German, Gaelic, Scottish, Fingal, Dubgal, that was something to remember. Like we said, this was the book Origin of the Anglo-Saxon Race, just proving that dub was a word for the Danes and the Vikings, right? And that there were other Vikings that weren't called dub, they were called Finn, right? And the Anglo-Saxons were definitely called the Black Mane or dub, right? Which is where the name Black Mane comes from, or Black Mun. It's actually a Viking last name, right? So we got the Dacians, which Dacia is going to be a place also to remember for a video that I'm going to show you guys. Dacia is one of the first places they took over after Denmark. And then I showed you guys some pictures from last week, right? So these are some Denmark kings, right? Everybody's black except for this one and that one, which this would be the real image of Eric, and this would be the real image of Harold, right? So, all right. Now for today's lesson, that was just a recap of last week, so everybody's caught up, so y'all understand exactly what we're gonna be going over today. Today we got some videos for y'all to watch. Gonna go a little bit more into this history, so get your pens and papers out. Gonna go into some books as well, but mainly what this class is gonna be about. Of course, we know that Esau stole in everything he got. That was part of his blessing that he got on the earth, right? Not only did he steal everything, but the names that he's going around the earth calling himself, right? He stole it. For example, everybody knows what a Goth is, right? Or Gothic people. Put a 7 in the chat if you've heard of Gothic people before, if you know what a Goth is. Put a 7 in the chat if you've heard of Gothic people, or if you know what a Goth is. Heard of Gothic music or any of that crap. You see the white people do it, right? They always dress up in a specific particular color for a specific particular reason. Nobody knows why. We think it's because they sad. They came up with this word called emo to express it. They say it's got something to do with emotions, but emo isn't a word that the Goths use. It's not a word in the Gothic language, right? The Goths were people from Germany, right? Around the same time as the Jutes and the Anglo-Saxons, and they're known to be a people that related to the Jutes and the Anglo-Saxons, right? And the Gauls. And these Goths were black, right? So the people that go around perpetrating these Goths, what do? Well, just like the people perpetrating the Jews, they wear black, right? So, but those are just a couple of nuances that niggas like us never realized that we're going to go over today, right? Because it's stuff that should have been obvious to us, but for some reason it wasn't. Like, they're actually trying to be us. And they put the spikes and all that other crap on it because Vikings wore spikes and stuff. Hold on just a second, guys. Hold on just a second. Knock, are you there? Or are you dipped out? He must be gone. Give me a second, y'all. All right. So,
You're lucky.
I'm back now. I'm good. So, all right, Dan and Judah. Actually, before we do this, let's learn a little bit about your brother Esau, right? Who were the Slavs? Right now, we're gonna go ahead and prove that they're not the people they say they are, and that the Slavic people came to the land after the Germans, the Goths, and the Celts, and all them people. Those people were already here, right? These Slavic people end up, moving into the land. They become slaves and eventually get to work their way up through different empires, right? Like the Primitive Empire and ours through the Byzantine Empire, right? And then eventually they end up overthrowing us, right? Like it says what happened in the book of Malachi. So we're actually going to see how that happens. You guys get to hear Israelites talk about how we kicked them to the Caucasus Mountains, and then they moved up and became the Khazars. Then they decided, oh, we're going to be Jews. And then they come back down and they take over the world, right? But we never know the story in between all of that. So that's what you're going to learn today. In fact, Knock, you're still here, right?
God.
Can you read Job for me?
God.
30 verse 1.
God.
We can show this, and then we're going to show exactly what happened and where they went after this situation happened.
God, this is the book of Job, chapter 30 and verse 1. But now they that are younger than I have me in derision, whose fathers I would have disdained to have set with the dogs of my flock.
Mm-hmm.
Yea, whereto might the strength of their hands profit me, in whom old age was perished? For want and famine they were solitary, fleeing into the wilderness in former time, desolate and waste, who cut up mallows by the bushes, and juniper roots for their meat. They were driven forth from among men. They cried after them as after a thief, to dwell in the cliffs of the valleys, in caves of the earth, and in the rocks, among the bushes.
So look, hold on, just stay where you at, because you're going to continue that. So can everybody see this map? Is it clear or is it not clear? I might need to zoom in a little bit for y'all. That should be better, right? Y'all can see that?
God.
All right, cool. So you see Israel, right?
God.
Let's say we got, Judea over here and everything under the, Roman, Edomite, Idumean rule, right? So we got, John Hyrcanus and them, the Maccabees, shout out to y'all, right? The Hammers. And they kick Esau, Idumea, Edom to the mountains, right? So we can see we got Israel. We kick them north from amongst men to the Caucasus, right? Out here, Azerbaijan, Georgia, where all them Turkmenistani dudes is at. Them white guys with the black beards and stuff with no mustache. You know what I'm talking about?
Right.
The ones that wrestle real good. They be wrestling bears and stuff in the snow.
Yeah.
They real good at MMA and stuff. That's where they live at, right? So from here, they travel up to the mountains, start populating places like Belarus, Poland, Russia, right? Romania. Because these Caucasus Mountains span this far, right? Let me show you something. Hold on. And there's a reason I'm showing you guys this, I promise. There's a reason I'm showing you guys this. So, yeah, here we go. All right. There's another mountain range that people don't know about. It's called the Ural Mountains, right? And I know a lot of y'all don't like history, so this isn't going to be a very interesting class for y'all. But for those of you that do, it's going to tie a lot of the dots, or connect, rather, a lot of the dots that have been missing in your history as it comes to connecting how Esau took us over, right? How we ended up losing the land when we ran so much of it, right? So first you have to understand how vast of a people they were and how much they were able to control just from us making them go to the mountains, right? They were basically able to inhabit a place nobody was at. Japhet hadn't came up to this land. They got the Isles of the Gentiles, right? If it was any Japhetites there, it was very few of them, because they weren't going all up into the mountains. They were seafaring people, right? That's what they was like. That's their gift, merchandise and stuff like that, to be by the water, right? Not in the mountains in the cold. So when Esau goes up there, he starts populating the mountain ranges and all that type of stuff with his own people, right? This is where the Slavs come from. They come from these mountains and ends up coming down. The Khazars also come from these mountains and end up coming down, right? To civilizations already made, which were made by us, which we're going to prove right today in this class. But one mountain range that helped them out coming down from Russia was the Ural Mountains, which we're going to hear in the video we're going to listen to in a second. And you'll see that the Ural Mountains and the Caucasus Mountains, they're both basically they run through Russia, right? Here it says the Ural Mountains are mostly in Russia, which they span horizontal, and then we have the Caucasus Mountains, which are, or I mean the Ural Mountains are vertical, and the Caucasus Mountains are horizontal, right? So Caucasus Mountains are shared by Russia, Georgia, Armenia, Azerbaijan, Turkey, and Iran, right? So they're able to span and walk through all these different mountain ranges and stuff, through all these different countries, right? And it takes them all the way to northeastern Europe. From there, they can move to Western Europe, right? Just walking through the top, moving every so often, you know? So that's how they get there. We kick them to the Caucasus. Let me take myself off. Yeah. So we kick them to the Caucasus, and they end up moving to the Ural Mountains. You know what I'm saying? Then they come into contact with Dan. Once they come into contact with us around Scandinavia, like we talked about last week, right? We start kicking them out the land. We start fighting them. They start moving. So they're moving further west. Once they get to the part that connects, you know what I'm saying, with Greece and all that type of stuff, and the land that they can move down through Rome, they basically start to travel down. And this is when we begin to call them the Slavs, because they get trapped right within our Byzantine Empire and our Scandinavian Empire with Dan. And we end up trading them, right, through this entire time period with our cousin Ishmael, right? And it becomes known between the three of us, right, Judah, Benjamin, Dan, and Ishmael, that you know, these white people, so-called, would be the slaves of the earth. And that's what we were basically trading them as. That's what they were known to them as. That's what they were known to us as. And it wasn't until later on in the Byzantine Empire that we started giving them an opportunity to rise up in civilization and take rank. And that's what bit us in the butt. This video is going to explain kind of their origin. And then we're going to get some stuff from the PowerPoints. And from there, we'll actually...
It was cited by a number of Roman writers in the 6th century. So,
all right, there we go. Where I want to start. Yeah, we'll start right here. All right, pay attention. Y'all hit the like button if you haven't already, Bubba Kasha. Because it's probably going to get shadow banned because of the type of video. We got proof to show everything. So,
whom he roughly places along the Baltic. People call history belongs to
here,
is now widely rejected. The indisputable first reference of the Slavs in history belongs to Pliny the Elder, who wrote extensively on many different subjects. He mentions a people called the Venedi, whom he roughly places along the Baltic. A few decades later, in AD 98, when Tacitus composed his work Germania, he also makes mention of a people called the Venedi, whom he says...
So look, you got the Gothons, that's us. Venedi, that's them. Finny. What's that word remind you guys of? What did we go over last week? Fingal, right? Right above Venedi. This is where they come from. This is where they settled once they start moving down, right? And Finny. And we give them the name because it's Gaelic. That's what we're speaking, right? Gaelic and Greek. So Finny is the name that we gave to the place they lived, right? Land of the Fairs, the Whiteface, the Pales, right? You got the Saxons over here, right? Angli, Soisin, which is like dark land, right? Swart, Heruli, play on Hercules, the traders, Heraclim, right? All of this is ours, right? They allowed to move here. They come, they pull up. And ironically, he made all the names black here, and he's got them green and brown. But yeah, so that's what it is, right? And these Esseti people are also related to them. They come from these Iranian folks he's going to mention next.
spoke a language different from the Germans and the Sarmatians. Veneti, whom he says spoke a language different from the Germans and the Sarmatians.
So white people tell you that they started German, right? There's Israelites that tell you white people started the German language. But the fact of the matter is, when they got to the land, the Germans were already speaking the German language. Who were the Germans? The people we showed you before, right? The folks that spoke Gaelic. That's what the original German language was. And it involves Hebrew, right? So there's no proof that I could find after Esau gave his blessing up, you know what I'm saying, left the land after Isaac dies, that he even was speaking Hebrew. Everywhere it says he spoke a different language, right? By the time he gets to the mountains, they're not speaking a language that we can speak. This guy in this video is going to explain a little bit more. We called them, you know, like understandable people, and they called us mumblers because they couldn't understand what we were saying, right? And we spoke the languages that have the names today, right? The German, the Gaelic, the Greek, the Latin, right? They're speaking a language that the Slavs speak today. The Slavs are actually the biggest European group on the earth right now. And who are the people that you think of when you think of Europeans? So-called white people, right? They all come from these people that we now call the Slavs. That's a name we gave to a sect of their people because they were our slaves, right? The rest of them obviously dropped that name because they didn't want to be looked at as such. So, but he's going to explain it.
But who were believed to have mixed with Sarmatians.
Sarmatians are Iranians, right? Remember we spoke about the Caucasus Mountains connecting in Iran. That's where they start, right? Going all the way to Russia through Azerbaijan and Georgia and all that type of stuff. Well, the Sarmatians are people that they mix to it. So when you see certain Arabs, they're real hairy, they look white, light skinned, them Turks and stuff, the Turks got their first, you know, the Turks became the Turks. The people that would eventually become the Turks became the Turks. They got their mix through the mix between the Slavs and the Sarmatians, right? Which the Germans were not a part of either group. As you heard the guy say, the people of Germany, which would have been us at that time, right? And Japhet, we were speaking a totally different language, right? We were a totally different people, totally different history.
Ptolemy, the famous cartographer, distinguished two Veneti populations, one which dwelt on a portion of the Baltic coast and another further inland to the southeast. The Veneti were almost certainly Slavic. Several hundred years after these initial Roman accounts, Jordanes, a Byzantine official, composed his Gothica, which detailed the account of the origins of the Goths. In it he says, near their left ridge, which inclines towards the north, and beginning at the source of the Vistula, the populous race of the Veneti dwell, occupying.
You see? He said to the right and to the north of the Goth, the Veneti dwell. The Goth are writing about the Veneti because they're not the same people. The Goths spoke Greek. Greek was brought to the land by the Israelites. The Goths were us. That's why they dress up in all black. It's just a weird version of blackface. They probably don't even know where it come from.
Occupying a great expanse of land.
Goth translates to God's people. God's Thracians, God's people.
Though their names are now dispersed among various clans and places, yet they are chiefly called the Sclaveni and the Antes. 100 years.
So after we lost Czech, right, which you now call the Czech Republic, they called it Czechoslovakia because the Slavs took it over, right? History.
Years after Jordanes, we find a large group of Slavic-speaking people identified as the Wends, almost exactly where Pliny, Ptolemy, and Jordanes had placed the Veneti. With this in mind, Veneti is almost certainly a Latin and Greek transliteration.
Venede is Latin. Finnish was where Fine was, right? Watch what he's about to say. He just said a word, win, right? Is what another transliteration of this word was. Watch what the final word is going to be that he's going to say in the Gaelic.
Of the same archaic form that gave rise to later Wends. In many Germanic languages, they called the Slavs who lived in nearby regions as Wends. In Old English, it appeared as Wined and is used to denote Slavs. However, the word generally fell out of common use sometime in the later Middle Ages. City names such as Berlin are thought to be derived from the Wendish Slavic language.
So Berlin is the city that they took once they took Germany from us, because that was the place that they settled when they were in Germany. So they already had things there.
Whether these Veneti were in reality the origin of all the Slavs is debatable, but they do seem to have been located close to the proposed homeland of the Slavs, and are our earliest mention of a Slavic people.
So these Slavic Finnish people are the people that moved down, right, and basically took over Rome in Europe, Eastern and Western.
It is very possible that the Veneti have the same etymology as the Celtic tribe called Veneti. Their name is proposed to mean kinsman.
He didn't say the Celts. He said the Celtic tribe, right? Meaning in history, historians called them a Celt or a tribe of Celts. But according to what this guy's going to tell you, the other Celts, they sect this one set of Celts out. You know what I'm saying? They ostracized them in a way, right? Gave them a different identity in all their stories, right? They called them the Veneti, and they put them near a place called Red Ones. Huh? The Celts had multiple groups. All but one group was known to be Dub, and the one group that wasn't had the same name as the people from Finland, or the Finnish, the white people, the fair ones, the Veneti, and they were put in a land with the nickname the Red Ones. These are the Red Celts, your Slavs.
Proto-Celtic form Wenet, from Proto-Celtic Wenya, meaning family or kin.
And we called them Wenet or Wenya to say they are kin to each other, not kin to the rest of us, right?
In Gaelic, the word is Finna.
In Gaelic, it's what?
Wenya, meaning family or kin. In Gaelic, the word is Finna, meaning
Finna, right? For the white people. Finn Ginty, right? Finn Gaul, right? This is what we identified them as in our stories that they now try to say are all white people stories identifying other white people. Doesn't make any sense. It's like Jacob and Esau. Why is Esau the only one being identified with the color, but everybody else is not being identified with the color? Because everybody else was the same race. Everybody else was related in the fact that, they were kinsmen. That's why they were saying these people are kinsmen. That's why the names for them was to denote these people as kin to themselves, not kin to the rest of us, because they were the only ones in the land that were different.
meaning generally people of a common descent. This is cognate with Proto-Germanic winis, meaning friend. The Proto-Slavic community very likely had a similar word from the same Indo-European root, which became a tribal name. However, it was the term Slav which would become most widely known. Sklaveni
almost done with this video. Shalom.
Is believed to be a Greek transliteration of the Proto-Slavic form Sloveni. It was cited by a number of Roman writers in the 6th century, such as Procopius and Jordanes, as one of the major tribal names of a single ethnic group, which Jordanes and others believed originated with the Veneti.
A single ethnic group, right?
The meaning Slav has a number of...
Don't we always teach they're the least populated people on the planet? These people are the least populated folks ever to exist. You know what I'm saying? But, I was about to say, where's my co-host at? He didn't disappear. Damn. But yeah, so that's that, right? So
of interpretations, but the most likely is that it developed from the Proto-Indo-European root "klu," meaning to hear. The origin of the Slavic
clue. Mind you some? KKK? Slav!
word for word, but also related to the Slavic word for fame or glory, as in the common phrase Slava Boga, glory to God, or the commonly heard phrase now, Slava Ukraina.
That's why Ukraine has the name Ukraine, Ukraina, right? Macarena, Ukraina, Macarena, right? We didn't call no place Ukraine when we had Kiev. We called it Kiev, right? We called it Rus, right? They called it Russia, right? We had Bulgaria and we had Belarus, and then they called it Russia, and then Belarus. Well, no, we had Belarus, and then they had Bulgaria, right? So they changed the names of the lands. We had Germany. They kept Germany, but they changed the capital to Berlin, the place that they were settled at, right? And he's even going to talk about where they settled and the type of places that they were at, and explain how they weren't in the cities in any of these places they settled. Their cities were swamps.
Proto-Slavic Slovene may have carried the meaning of the ones with shared speech, or possibly the famous ones. This can be contrasted with the Slavic name for the Germans, Nemets, related to the word for a mute or mumble.
Look, nemesis, right? What's a word that this comes from that you remind of, or that you're reminded of when you look at that? Y'all know the word nemesis? Y'all know what that means? So in the Slavic, the word that they had for the Germans, the black people, was nemesis, which now is the word nemesis, which means like op, right? So crazy how stuff like that works, ain't it?
Person, Nemci, implying that Germans were people that could not be understood, the equivalent of Greek barbaroi.
And I told you barbaroi meant, the bearded men. What?
Right. No, I'm just reading. Go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, what happened? Somebody says something?
No, I was just reading what it says, and I'm just following the video.
Okay.
It was only one of numerous names that various Slavic peoples were known by, but they and others believed that they all had a common origin, despite their many separate tribes. Though it is difficult to conclusively match the Slavs to any one archaeologically defined material culture, by the time they enter...
Because every culture they went into, they adopted it. They didn't have a particular culture. That's why it's hard to pinpoint where they come from, right?
Into history.
Or it's hard to pinpoint that they are the people from Khazar, or they're the people that were the Idumeans in Judea, unless you actually have tracked the history like we can, because we have the Bible and we treat it like a historical book, not a religious one, right?
They are organized into many tribal groups, seemingly with only localized low-level hierarchy. This is typical of smaller, less complex societies without large accumulations of wealth. Though the Indo-Europeans had a common word for king, Ri in Gaelic, Raj in Sanskrit, and Rex in Latin.
Yeah, Ri in Gaelic, right? My name Eric. That's my government, right? It means eternal king. That was the name that a lot of the Danes had, right? It's a Norse name. My first, middle, and last name is all Danish, Danite. But yeah, that is a name or a word. What he's explaining is we had words for king. Listen to what he's about to say about the Slavic people. They had no such thing, right? And what's the prophecy say? That they were going to be slaves to us, right? Until they're ready to take that yoke off their neck. They never had a king this whole time. After the time of Alexander and his Diadochi, right? There was no more ruling Edomites until we started giving them positions, right? They didn't even have a word for king while they were the Slavs.
This had been lost in Slavic. The loss of the native word for the position may be the result of a past cultural shift that forcibly removed this figure from society.
The cultural shift was what we read about in the book of Job when we pushed them to the mountains and they were forced from among men to dwell in the cliffs of the rocks. In fact, you still got that? Not?
Con.
Can you read the rest of that?
Con. Starting at verse 7. Among the bushes they brayed, under the nettles they were gathered together. They were children of fools, yea, children of base men. They were viler than the earth.
Mm-hmm. So that's who these people were, right? They were straight like that, right? Children of stupid people, real vile. They was able to do whatever they wanted. They walk around naked. They sleep where they crap at, right? All that type of stuff. That's what they was used to, right? And I got some pictures I'm going to show you in the PowerPoint a little later. You've already heard about how we found them. They were walking on all fours and they had, hairy bodies and stuff, right? Like a hairy garment, as the Bible says. We've never seen these pictures or any, evidence of this because they don't show it to us in school. Well, I got a book that might show you some things.
The later Proto-Slavic word for king, korol, is a late borrowing of the Germanic name Karl, arguably referring to Charlemagne.
So, you see Charlemagne with the fringes? That's not, yeah. Look, so, well, that might be Pope Gregory with the fringes, but which I'll show you. He's a nigga. Charlemagne, right, would be where they get their name for king, because he was a king that ruled over them, a king that they know about. So the word that they get for king, Karl, is even a word that doesn't even, it's not a word they made up. It's basically probably the nickname or the way that they was able to pronounce the king's name, right?
The word is often used to date the very late nature of Proto-Slavic, as it shows up in all three of the branches and undergoes the typical sound changes. This doesn't mean that Slavic isn't ancient, but that it remained intact as a single linguistic continuum for a very...
Because Esau didn't, write. They had oral traditions. They weren't a very, literate people. They didn't have books and stuff they was writing down until we taught them to keep records like that, right? So that's how that worked. That's why they didn't have any records, though they were all speaking this language that they all could speak. They could go anywhere and speak a language to another person that looked just like them because it was something they passed down. It wasn't something they wrote down, right? They didn't do that till they came into contact with us. Then they started stealing our records and making our faces their faces so that they wouldn't have to write new records. Hence the covering of the faces and the judges thereof, right? That's what they did.
Very long time, and only began to diverge within the historical period. Both of our earliest sources, Jordanes and Procopius, were of the belief that though the Slavs lived in various tribal groupings, they had a common origin. This view is reiterated in the Chronicles of Nestor, otherwise called the Primary Chronicles, our earliest extant Slavic composed history. Jordanes describes their location at the time of the 6th century. The abode of the Sclaveni extends from the city of Noviodonum and the lake called Murcianos to the Danaster.
The what? Danaster. Danaster. They came into contact with Dan along this river. They began getting put on ships and being shipped around the world along this river. And it caused them to move along this river to another river called the Danube, which is how they came in contact with the Byzantine Empire. Because the Danube connects to the Byzantine Empire, right? And the Primitive Empire. So they're right in the middle of Danite territory at this time, right? Moldova, Poland, Russia, Scandinavia, Prussia, Bulgaria. That was all Dan's land.
And northward as far as the Vistula. They have swamps and forests for their cities.
You heard that? they have swamps and forests for their cities. That's how Esau used to live. After we pushed them from the to the mountains, the places that they went to go found after that were nothing but swamps and forests, right? Hence why they like to be in the swamps, in the forest now, right? You got them shows with them in Louisiana, the swamp folks, swamp people, whatever they call, right? You got Duck Dynasty, because that's what they come from, right? And then we got the Danube River in Romania, right? Also Dan's land, right? This was their favorite river to trade along with these people. We'll trade these people along, rather.
Noviodunum is a Celtic name for several locations, but in this case, used for a
Noviodunum is a Celtic name because the Celts were who? Okay.
Roman fort and port, also called Noviodunum on the Istra, that is the Danube.
Danube, right? The Easter, Danister, Dnipro, and Moldova, Danube, right?
It's near the modern Romanian town of Isacha, very near the Ukrainian border. The Vistula is the river which runs primarily through the middle of Poland. Now he adds, the Antes, who are the bravest of these peoples, dwelling in the curve of the Sea of Pontus, spread from the Dniester to the Dnieper, rivers that are many days' journey apart. This refers to the area between the Dniester and the Dnieper rivers. Danu was a Scythian word for river, and both names are
Scythian word. Oh, did you know we were the Scythians? I think I told you that, read that from Elder Karash last week, right? We'll read that again to show you exactly who we were. But yeah, Scythians was us too, right? And we gave them the word. We gave the Scythians as the Scythians, right? The word Danube or Dan becomes a word for river to the Slavs because we become associated with water, right? Anything Dan got water in it in Europe because we was the people trading along those riverways. It was a way to mark our territory with Ishmael and all the other people that were coming to trade along the land, right? The other merchants that were trading slaves, right? You can't trade here. This is our territory, right? You know how like the Crips and Bloods and Latin Kings and MS-19 and the GDs and everybody got blocks? Well, back then niggas had rivers.
based on it and inherited from the Scythian language. That they lived at that time in the forests and swamps was probably more truth than insult. They dwelt primarily in small scattered villages, though by the 10th century, some had developed into towns such as Polotsk, Kiev, Novgorod.
So, this even, he's giving them credit for our stuff. He says they had nothing but small cities, right? They were scattered. They lived in swamps. To say that they lived in swamps and in forests is maybe more truth than insult, because it is all truth, no insult, right? When we get to the 10th century and he starts talking about Russia and, Kiev and Veliki, we're going to see that was founded by Vladimir and his two sons, which are black. We get that from this beautiful non-expensive book that you could get on Amazon right now, if it's still there, because I know the last time I bought this, it was the last one on the internet. So you might just want to ask me for it. Y'all can rent it from me if you want. You know what I'm saying? But it's called Rise of Russia, and it's got all the Negroes in it, right? And tells you the story of how it started. I'll show you some pictures. It's in the PowerPoint. So that's basically where we're going to stop with this video, just to show you guys, right, that they aren't actually the people they say they are, and that they started nothing that they said they started. And the people that they claim to be, they are not. Hold on, let me actually pull that up real quick. So, word from Elder Karash. Greek history is Hebrew. Lacedaemonian, which y'all should know that, from Lacedaemon, which was a place, an ancient founding forefather of Greece, right? Which, when you look this up, it actually says that. Remember how I told you the apotheosis, right? They take our actual people from the 12 tribes that go to Greece, Argos, Javan, Mycenae, and they make them gods after they find out about our heroic traits or our heroic stories and travels and all that type of things, right? So there's actually a king that pulls up to the land named Lacedaemon, which is where the name of the Lacedaemonians comes from. He has a wife named Sparta, right? Which is where the name Sparta comes from. And when you know or look at the Lacedaemonians or the Spartans, right? The Spartans, for example, they have a big old L on their shields. Why? Because it's to give tribute to Lacedaemon, right? Them being the Lacedaemonians who took their name from their king's wife, Sparta, right? So that's something you could look up. Even AI explains that story. But it calls it a mythical story because they've now been made into gods according to the Greek pantheon, right? So, name of the So, Lacedaemon was a founding father of the Greeks, who were brown people, as Japhet was, as the Mycenaeans, as you could read in Ezekiel 27, like I told you guys before. Lacedaemon, wife name was Sparta. The Spartans have a Greek lambda, or the L, which is how you say that in Greek, on their shields in honor of Lacedaemon's wife. Lacedaemon's ancestors go back to the Danai or the Danen, the Hellenes, the Ionians, the Dorians, the Archaeans, the Argive, the Danes, Israelites, right? All these people, the Pelops, Agamemnon's people, Menelaus, Achilles, the Byzantine kings, the Danes, right? The Gypsies, Black Gypsy Moors, right? Because there was different types of Moors. All these people were actually names that we gave to the land, right? And now Scythians, barbarians, Franks, Jutes, Gauls, Anglo-Saxons, those were all black people, which we're going to show you today. And now, they've taken that since they kicked us out the land through the Council of Verona, the expulsion of the Jews, and us just moving to those moving from those places rather to conquer other places, which we're also going to see in this lesson. So that's just a couple of the names. He says you can read the Iliad and Odyssey and all those things that they was teaching you guys in history class that y'all didn't like, and it'll explain it a little bit. What's the issue? You got a problem with something? This stuff you never heard before? You confused? Yeah, let me show you something. Let me show you something. What's up with my computer? Why is it doing it? Let me show you something. Just to bring it back, right? History of the Anglo-Saxon race. The borders of Saxony and Prussia, which is Russia, Saxony, which is Bohemia, right? Which is around Poland and Czechoslovakia, right? Where you think no black people ever been at. It's too cold for niggas, right? Some of the darker winds. What's that word that we just heard that they called the Slavs? The people that ran the Slavic nation and the people that were of the Slavic nation, the people that were actually Slavs. A name for them was wind, right? Well, the dark winds may have been amongst the black Vikings, who were the what? The rulers of the lands, right? Oh, okay. What else does it say? Referred to in the Irish annals as the Wales. What? So the original people of Wales were black. That's why they're called Walsh now, right?
Slavic.
Yeah.
Is it possible for you to kind of blow that up a little bit to see some of the words? Because it's kind of far from the.
Blow it up. Okay.
Zoom in a little bit so we can actually see. Yeah, there we go. So we can actually see what you're actually reading.
I don't need to see it. I just need to hear it. No, I'm playing. Yeah. There you go. The invasion of the coast of the British Isles by Vikings of a dark or black complexion rests on historical evidence, meaning it's so historical you can't deny it, right? Even though they don't teach about it, they just don't teach about it. They can't deny it. They just don't teach about it. See, because if they taught about it, it'd be irrefutable because the proof is there. So they just don't teach about it, so you wouldn't know about it. In the Irish Annals, which is the book about Ireland, the Black Vikings are called Gub Dub Ginty, or Black Gentiles, right? who would call them Gentiles except for the people that follow the Bible, which would be the Israelites, the Stuarts, the black people, the Mycenaeans, their brothers and sisters from the southern kingdom, right? Who were all into Christianity and stuff then because of the time of Jesus, them being around him and being apostles and all that stuff, right? A lot of them people were trying to keep that pureness amongst them, which is why Christianity was so big amongst the Anglo-Saxons, right? And their Christianity was different than the Christianity we have today because they were trying not to pervert anything, right? It was like Gentile Hebrewism, if you want to call it that, right? Gentile Judaism that they call Christianity. So, and we'll get into a little bit of that today too. But this is just the history of the Anglo-Saxon race. You got Dub and Finn. Finn for the fair people, right? Which we just talked about. The Finnish, Fingal, Fingenti, right? And the Finnish people are who the Veneti come from, which would be who the Slavs were, right? We were the black people that ran all these places. They were the slaves that we used to, work in all these places. That proof that they said is undeniable in history is right here. This is the Normans taking over the British Isles. All of them are black. Oh, damn. Okay, right here. See, it's going like zooming in now. I make it hard for me to run my PowerPoint because y'all niggas can't see. All right. So as you see, even though they got the watermarks and stuff like that, trying to brighten up the picture, there's a name for that. I just can't remember what it's called. You can see they're all black. So these are all black people engraved in the history of France and Ireland, Scotland, Wales, and England as the Vikings that took over the land. So if black Vikings came to take over the land, and we know that by 1066, under William the Conqueror, they're ruling the land. I got to zoom out, Knock. I'm sorry, bro. It's not working. You see that brother right there, right? I got to get my stuff right. Okay. So you see the brother right there, right? William the Conqueror, 1066. That's him. This is the original picture, the black guy. He was the one controlling these Vikings, right? This is what he looks like now, due to them changing the faces of the judges thereof. Job 9:24, right? First Maccabees 3 and 48. So this is the kings of Denmark, Scandinavia, Sweden, Norway. They're all black. Even got a black patina. He's black forever. They can't make him white. They got to make a whole new statue. Right? This is Eric the First of Denmark. This is the real picture. These are the whitewashed images. You see how many times they had to change him in history to try to make him look white? None of these even look the same. But this is the original. This is Harold. This is the original one. White Harold, black Harold. Real Harold, fake Harold. See how that works? This is Richard. He light skinned. He looked like a Genuine or something, right? He had green eyes. Probably had a white mama or something, white grandma. But Richard was a Dubgal, right? Black king. These are all brothers from Denmark, right? The Mark of Dan. So let's get into the lesson for today. Judah and Dan are actually the Greeks. We proved how Israelites began Greek civilization with Javan and the Mycenaeans around 1500 BC. The tribe of Dan as the Danites and the Danai found Cyprus. The Greek god pantheon gets established, as we said. Dan takes over the land of the Dorians, 1100 BC. Judah comes in as the Mycenaeans, 1000 BC. And we basically lose everything once Philip and Alexander take over. Now we get to the Byzantine Empire. We have Septimius Severus, who takes over Rome, 193 AD. The reason why in history, when you take your history classes and you learn this stuff, they always mix up Rome and Greece, and they make it confusing, and they can't decipher at a certain time which one's Rome and which one's Greece before you know one's black and one's white. It's because once we become the Byzantine Empire, to the rest of the world, we are Roman. But to us, we are Greek. To the rest of the world, we are the only Romans that speak Greek. And this video that we're going to watch is actually going to explain it. So, look, now what she said? She said they look tan like her. Okay. hold on. So, like I said, there's been whitewash. Knock, help me out. Give me Job 9:24, so we can help a little bit late. That's where she seems to be a little bit late.
Right.
All she's saying is what? Okay, can you reiterate? I came in late. The Jews are not Christian. They actually are Christian. The Jews would be the only people that follow Christ. To be Christian means to follow Christ. The Jews keep Passover. Christians don't. Christ kept Passover. Christians keep Christmas, right? Which isn't following Christ. It's against the Bible to keep Christmas in the book of Jeremiah, which is why Christ kept Passover. Christ kept dedication. Christians don't do that, but Jews do. Christ doesn't keep Easter. He keeps the Passover, as we said. We have the Feast of Trumpets, the Feast of First Fruits, Tabernacles, right? All feast days we were told to keep as followers of Christ. Christians do none of such. So the original Christians, as the Bible says, were actually the Jews, right? They were called Jews, were first called Christians in Antioch, right? In the book of Acts. So that's how that works. They actually are the Christians. Shows how much you know, a little bit late. But just to, because you said everybody look light skinned, right? There's a thing called iconoclasm, right? Where white people have been trying to make themselves the pictures of the black people to make their claim to the land called Europe a thing, right? Europe itself, right? We're going off topic a little bit, but this is going to be the last 5 seconds I'm going to give to you before I get back to the lesson. Europe itself is even named after a black woman, right? Not a light-skinned one either. Let me show you this right quick. Get it to pull up. I got so many windows open. It's crazy. Hold on.
You want to show a picture of iconoclasm or something? Or what?
No, I'm about to show her this right quick so she could see. This is so the place is called Europe, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
It's named after a woman that's black, still to this day.
That's right.
Right? They can't change everything. I'm gonna show you some proof of some things. These are, founders of Russia, Bulgaria, Ivan the Terrible. These people ain't light-skinned. And they're the direct, family of the people we just showed that they used iconoclasm to try to whiten. These are the literal founders of Russia, right? Vladimir and them. They made the Russian icons with all the black pictures of Jesus and stuff that Vladimir Putin been showing everybody. It's because the first king of Russia was a nigga. That's why he comprised the Russian icons book that cost $4,000 right now. Right? Because they don't want you to see all the black kings that ruled Europe. These are the brothers from England, Scotland, and Wales. This is Louis the 15th, Louis the 16th, Henry the 8th, 7th, Henry the 8th, which I happen to be my family. When you look me up on 23andMe, Ancestry.com, we are actually related to these guys, which explains the fact why my name is what my name is, right? But just, we're getting ahead of ourselves. Just wanted to show her that, right? So she sees, no, it's not just a bunch of, black people come light skinned too, sis, tan or whatever you want to call it. There's plenty of black people your color, but majority of the people that were running the land were what you consider to be black people today, right? Just because the images look a little light skinned don't mean they were that light skinned particularly, because there's something called iconoclasm, which is where people literally have tried to whiten the images of these people. And even when they couldn't whiten the images, they made another white person, an actual white person, stand there to make a new image of the person, which is why you see sometimes you type in people and they have 18 different faces on them, and they, like, none of the faces look the same, right? But they want you to believe all of these are authentic images. It's because they spent time putting a person that isn't the real person up there to make a fake image of them, to paint a fake image of somebody that was white, right? So that in history, in some book, they could find this image and put it up there and say, this is Henry the 15th, and it's not, right? This is from the Smithsonian Museum magazine. They have him as a blackface Wesley Snipes nigga, right? This is from the Smithsonian Museum magazine. They have Louis the 16th, the last king of France, of the Bourbon dynasty. Bourbon being brown, right?
Right.
It's a brown liquor for a reason.
Right.
It means brown. And the people that had the dynasty named after them were people that were brown, right? Not tan brown, but brown, like bourbon, right? And this is what Louis the 16th looked like, the one that lost the throne to Napoleon, the cracker, right? The cracker jacker. That's why they love him so much, because he's who gave them France, right? But back to the lesson.
Slakia.
Yeah.
I just want to make a comment real quick. I hope that everybody is really paying attention to what is being brought out here, because I'm pretty sure that most of everyone on here listening in, when they went to school, we were not given any of this information in history classes. I mean, this goes back to, I think was going to bring up Job 9:24. The earth is given to the hand of the wicked, right? This is showing how wicked this nation of people were. I mean, from what they've changed, the things that we have lost, and I'm sure that there are many books, there are many other archaeological finds that are hidden away that are going to come out of the woodwork eventually. But the Bible is definitely the piece that we need to put all these things back together. I mean, to think that Louis, now these are the kings of France, right? Louis the 15th and 16th.
All of the Louis was black, bro.
All the Louis, right? Think about that, man.
All the Henrys was black. Here, you want to see Henry? Nah, we're gonna show it in the lesson.
Yeah, you're showing a lesson, but I want everybody to really pay attention and really think about all these kings that are coming out. We were told that they were Edomites. They were white men.
And something for a little bit, right? The Jewish people are the ones that don't accept Jesus, right? The Jews are so-called black, Hispanic, well, black people, right? Hispanic and Native Americans would be the Northern Kingdom, the lost 10 tribes. They're not from the Americas. They came here in 722 BC. There's a lot of proof in that. There's a book you could get right here called The Lost Tribes in Promised Land. There's another book you could get called A Star in the West. It's a humble attempt to discover the long-lost 10 tribes of Israel, preparatory to their return to the land of Jerusalem from the Americas, right? A Star in the West is an investigation by Elias Banduit into the wildly held belief that Native Americans and Hispanics are the descendants from the lost 10 tribes of Israel. If you're Hispanic and didn't know that, you don't know much about your history. Quetzalcoatl, right, is about Jesus.
Right.
Montezuma, the king of the Aztecs, before getting hit in the head by a rock and killed by Cortez, told Cortez that the Aztecs are the tribe of Issachar, which is written in the book Lost Tribes in Promised Land, right? So all of that is history that a lot of our people don't know, but we teach it here at Anointed House of Saints, and we're going to keep teaching it right now. So, Byzantine Empire, right? Yeah, I didn't say you were. You said your sister-in-law is or something like that, right? She would be an Israelite. All of the saints are black a little bit. None of the saints were white. There's no such thing as a white saint. Whites would be the devil according to the Bible and according to history. Y'all are the deceivers of the planet, right? I feel like you white. That's why I say y'all. If you're not, you could correct me. You know what I'm saying? But you're talking like a white girl right now. That's why I said that. So, founded in 330 AD by Byzantine Emperor Constantine. Y'all want to see what Constantine looks like? In case anybody think, oh, he's white. That's Constantine right there, guys. Right? From the Russian icons, they have an icon of Constantine, right? Right here. Emperor Constantine. The wicked Danite, I believe he is. He might have been Judah, but I think he's Dan. Just me, myself. I think he's Dan. So yeah, but y'all can claim him if y'all want to. You know what I mean? So, Emperor Constantine, after fighting between whether to keep the old Greek wisdom or go straight into Christianity, we chose to go Christian with a little bit of Byzantine stuff, right? So Byzantine comes from dark purple, which is a color found where the Byzantine Empire was situated, right? It's also a color that the white people would, liken to the black people in the land, which is why old authors and historians liken the word Byzantine with black, right? Because it means purple, which, some people, they got jokes that some people are so black they purple, or some people so black they blue. You know what I mean? Like, that's where the jokes really come from. The word Byzantine, it means purple or dark purple, right? It talks about a dark hue, or it comes from a dark hue, and it also correlates with the color they put on Christ, right? From the people from Christ that moved there. So, instead of keeping the Latin language of their oppressors, right, they decided to go back to Koine Greek, which is why there's the Byzantine Empire is known as a Greek civilization with a Roman name, right? Which is why they call it the Empire of Contradictions. But they don't understand it's an empire of totally different people. They're not the white people from Rome. They're the black people from Greece, right? And we'll prove that in a little bit. So, yeah, they went back to Koine Greek instead of Latin, though Latin was the common language in the Indo-European, nations at that time, due to the conquest of the Romans, right? Like Philip and Alexander the Greek freak. This is why we see the Bible is written in Greek and Latin, right? Because our people were writing it in Greek. Paul was somebody born in Tarshish, right? He was a Greek-speaking person, spoke Koine Greek. But Latin was the language of the oppressor. So all of the high-minded people while we were in captivity spoke Latin, right? All the upper echelon people spoke Latin. When we took back over in 193 AD with Persinius Niger and Septimius Severus, they decided to allow us to go back to Greek. And by the time 6th century Heraclius comes on the scene rather, after Justinian, we're full Greek, right? And that's what happens. That's why they don't know what's going on with us. But while we're after the Constantine period, we have the Latin Vulgate made by Jerome in Latin to give the other people in our kingdom the opportunity to read our Bible, right? No different than what King James did by translating his Bible into English, right? Giving it the language of the common tongue so that the common people can read it. That's what the whole King James Bible was initiated for. So the Latin Vulgate was the same thing. It wasn't put out there to confuse people, as some Israelites teach, right? It was put out there by us for the other people to be able to understand our writings, because we had written everything in Greek, right? And of course, the Latin people, they had went in, tried to destroy our stuffs with the Latin with the Greek and put it in Latin, or try to take it from Hebrew and put it in Greek. So we had to go back to Greek to be able to preserve everything as well, right? That was part of the preservation period, which is also how we had people during the time of King James that were still fluent enough in Greek to properly translate everything. So, rise of Christianity in the Greek culture. Oh, before I show you that, I want to show you this, just to back up what we just said. No, the Jewish people a little bit are confusing people. Jewish. See, if I say you're childish, I'm not saying you are a child. I'm saying you act like one. Jewish people are the people known as the Jews today. They're the confusing ones because they're not the Jews. You feel me? They're not really our people. They have nothing to do with the Bible. That's why they're confusing, because they are confused themselves, right? English people aren't the real Ingles. Scottish people aren't the Scots. Irish people aren't the Irish. We're going to show you who all those people are before the issues was put on their name, right? So, yeah, Jewish people are definitely confusing, and I hate them with every fiber of my being. So, yeah, the big ones like Master Splinter. So, that ain't the freaking thing I was supposed to pull up. Hold on, guys. All right, here we go. So, were there councils before the Council of Nicaea? what a lot of people don't realize when they do this history, because they don't know about us being the Greeks, they just look at the Council of Nicaea. They look at Constantine as this evil dude that was trying to change the Bible and bring in paganism. And they don't really understand the story here, right? So let me break it down for you guys. Yes, there were councils before the first Council of Nicaea, but they were mostly local or provisional in nature. These are known as ecumenical councils, right? Or otherwise, they didn't include the whole church. Nicaea included the whole church, right? So these would be like little church councils, right? So say Knock got a church, and he got bishops and stuff like that. His bishops and his churches got a couple different locations, right? And they'll have their own little meetings every couple years or whatever and talk about doctrine and stuff, but they're not doing it with my church, right? The Nicene Council, the first one, was a council where me and Knock and Judah Church and Kano Church and Yakimiya Church, everybody church, Aharon Church, we all get together and we talk, right? That's what this was. The reason they were having these meetings every year since the 200 BC, let's say, right, is because they were trying to decide whether to incorporate their old Greek wisdom with their Christian beliefs, right, of the Bible, since they're trying to get back to that, since they know that that's what put them in captivity. Jesus just died. Paul just left the scene, right? They trying to get back, right? So how should we go? Do we keep this freaking Greek stuff up and keep these pagans following us through this crap, right? Because remember, we still got Japhet in the land. We keeping them, following us by keeping the old Greek stories in that they helped us make up and all that type of stuff, right? If we ostracize them and kick all them stories out the way, then people stop following us. They move away, which is eventually what happened. And then we lost the empire. But since some of us knew that would happen, they tried to prevent that by incorporating certain things that they would be cool with the things we needed to believe in. But of course, the Most High wanted us to be lukewarm, so he allowed us to, go that way for a time, and then he allowed us to fall to our ultimate enemy, the Edomites, known as Europeans today, right? The cracker, the devil that the Bible speaks of. So we had these little councils. Then we have the Nicene Council in 325 AD, right? Right before Constantine becomes the real emperor, right? So the first Nicene Council took place 325 AD, was the first, that word council, meaning it was a universal council that represented the entire church. Emperor Constantine called the council to address the relationship between Jesus Christ and the God the Father. The council resulted in the Nicene Creed, a significant church document, right? It also resulted in them adding or deciding whether they're going to add in stories about, Hercules or the Titans. And we're going to see that they actually did do that. They don't explain that when they talk about the Nicene Council, because they don't know that those two and the Greeks are connected. But we're going to prove it in the video we are going to watch right now. Put a 7 in the chat if y'all following me so far. Hey, God bless you too. Oh yeah, put back up when you feel like it. You might learn something. But a lot of people don't like to stick with this history if it ain't theirs, because it's scary. Make you feel like, well, damn, am I really who I thought I was? So let me see.
That's the fear they have, though. That's the fear. That's the fear that's coming on them.
So from 200 to 325, as we saw, there's proof that the bishops amongst the churches in the Roman and Greek Empire began to have councils to discuss doctrine and the incorporation of our Greek tales to keep our subjects in tune with us, right? So by 500 AD, we had basically fully spread Christianity to what would have been the Roman provinces, right? So from there all the way to Punjab, we got it spread out while still speaking Greek and Latin. We also have a province in North Africa, right? And we've taken over Egypt and all that type of stuff too, as vassals and everything. So everything Rome had plus North Africa, which is how we start moving to North Africa initially, right? After 70 AD, obviously we got people there, but we also start forming colonies in North and West Africa because we actually have a province there through the Byzantine Empire that a lot of Israelites don't talk about and teach about. So, just to quickly prove that, hold on a second. Let me show y'all this real quick. I didn't even know it wasn't on the screen. I thought it was. This is called the Exarchate of Africa, right? Is a division of the Byzantine Empire around Carthage, which is why I think Hannibal was a brother and not a, Hamite. Because Carthage was a Byzantine Empire vassal, right? That encompassed its possessions in the Western Mediterranean, ruled by an exarch or viceroy, right? Which is where Roy comes from, right? It's like a vassal or a duke, right? Somebody given the opportunity or the governorship to rule over a place by the king, right? We were the Roys, particularly of France and stuff like that, right? That's where the name comes from. Roy Jones Jr. got the name Roy Jones because it's actually a name from, the Roys of Jones from France. He might be a damn Danite his damn self, right? Anyway, so we got the Viceroy. It was established by the Emperor Maurice, right? In 591. Emperor Maurice, a brother, right? Son of Tiberius. So, yeah, we ain't got to get into all the Muslim stuff. We know about Emperor Justinian. We'll show you him. He was mixed. He's darker than that. He had a Latin mama. He spoke Latin. But just to show y'all, we had North African province too, which is also how we get the lion, right? When you look up those Anglo-Saxon movies with the white people now, they always incorporate the wolf, right? But the wolf was an animal that the Slavs were worshiping, right? Even though it's an animal for Benjamin, Benjamin was looking at the lion because we had the Barbary lion in North Africa at that time, right? It being a Byzantine province, that being a place that we had vassals and stuff, we would actually use this Barbary lion, and I'm sure some of them was still in Europe at that time too. So, but this Barbary lion was actually the lion that they used to, make all the sculptures of the lions and stuff like that in Europe. It's the Barbary lion that you're looking at, right? That Barbary lion wasn't extinct in North Africa until like the 1900s. So, yeah, that's actually the line we was looking at. That's what we depicted all of our stuff off of. And once we went up north where there was no longer a lion, that's when we started using that two-headed black eagle, which we'll talk about in just a second. So let me pull this up. We'll finish that. And then we're going to watch these two videos and get up out of here. So, yeah, we got the spread of everything by 500 AD. By 634, Ishmael begins to invade our Byzantine territory. And a lot of us begin to flee north to Bulgaria, Rus, Kiev, Bohemia, Moravia, Poland, Hungary, Austria, Czech, right? Which becomes the Holy Roman Empire. Holy Roman Empire. We know what the word holy means because we're Israelites, right? Well, guess what? They knew what the word holy meant too, because they just had Jesus pull up on the scene a couple years before that. Well, at this time, not a couple years, but they've been passing stuff down. They know the difference between the original Romans and the Holy Romans. We're the different Romans, the set apart Romans, the non-barbarous Romans, right? Barbarous Romans. So this is us, right? The Holy Roman Empire. We begin the Holy Roman Empire 800 AD, right? It ends officially in 1806, right? Which Napoleon, right? Franks, Danes, Jutes, Anglo-Saxons, Gauls, Rus, barbarians, Celts, Vikings, Normans, Britons, right? Would be the primary names under the Holy Roman Empire, or just the Holy Roman Empire, or just the Holy Empire, rather, as it later becomes called. And then we got the Primisid dynasty or Primisid Empire, which is who actually forms Kiev and Russia and Bulgaria, Czech, Austria, Hungary, Poland, all them places, right? That was us that formed that under Primisid, which is where that eagle comes from, right? So And yeah, they basically start around 800s as well. They don't end until 1306. King James' daughter actually was a queen of Bohemia and went to go marry Frederick, who was the king at that time, right? So we were even ruling in the 1600s in Russia and stuff like that during that time because King James was able to send his daughter up there to go live with the brother that was ruling at that time. Just to prove to you that was one of the last places we lost. It's not just something we teach, we're going to prove it. Holy Roman Empire and the Primulicid empires, as Saxons and Danes, ruled the Edomites, who we called Slavs, right? Or now translated as slaves. Denmark, founded in 600s. Dan was enslaving the Edomites who fled to the mountains after their loss in 193 AD, right? These are the people that would be caught up along the Danube and the Dan Nestor and the other Dan named rivers that we spoke about, right? And yeah, you can read that Job 30. So we started putting them on ships and selling them across the world. After leaving the Caucasus Mountains, as I showed you guys at the beginning, Edomites populated more of Western Europe, Eastern then Western, moving into our territory around 600, settling in a place called Sclavini as the Valenti, right? Or Fin Valenti. Here, they became subject to the traveling Danes and also Judah, ruling in Kiev and Bohemia, which we'll see is right in the middle of that, right? We made decrees, specific decrees, which the video we're going to watch is also going to back up. Decrees with the Primulicid Empire and the Anglo-Saxons, right? And also Ishmael, not to enslave any members of the Abrahamic religions. This is where the belief of there being some type of relation between these three beliefs, right? So-called Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, right? It's simply because of the pact that we had while we were trading with each other, not to put each other in captivity, and that the heathen could be slaves. The heathen primarily at that time were the white people who we called Slavs, right? So that's who ended up serving us and Ishmael at the same time. So the cousins was doing little Esau dirty. So this is just some pictures before we get into the videos. Some Israelite Roman rulers. We got Constantine. We got Alexios, right? We got a further descendant of Alexios, right? Emmanuel the First and his wife Maria of Antioch, proving that there's still white people in the land, still going by Antioch, right? To give a distinction to them. We're still calling them after their old Latin Roman names to give a distinction to them, right? Even in marriage. And then we have a darker version or darker painting rather of Justinian. I don't think he's all the way white. I see they got these darker murals of him, so I think they tried to iconoclast him. He had braids, you know what I mean, with the beads on them. So yeah, I always feel like he was a brother, but he did speak Latin, but he also spoke Greek as well. We have a Holy Roman painting of Paul. We got Pope Gregory the First. We got the great Saint Clement. I forget what this brother name is. It's gonna come back to me later. He's a saint too, though. Pretty famous one. I just forgot his name. This is the Russian icon of the three holy hierarchs. So we got Saint Basil the Great right here. We got Gregory the theologian right here, which we'll hear about in the video in a little bit. And we got Saint John of Chrysostom, which is right here. And then we got the great Saint Nick, right? The black guy, who they call Santa Claus after, right? Saint Nick always giving gifts. That's who this nigga is right here, right? Not Niklaus from the Dutch lands, but Saint Nicholas. We got the Primulicid rulers. You see that eagle, right? This is what this brother name is, Vladimir. This is Boris. This is Frederick the Elector, the husband of King James' daughter, Elizabeth. This is what this nigga name? Mattathias. He's another one from our God. Let me see. We got Saint Maurice. He's got the eagle, you know, the double-headed eagle. You can't see this chopped off in the picture, but that's the flag he's got, right? We got Ivan the Terrible, the great king of Russia. We have a drawing of this is Saint Vladimir, right? His cousin, basically. The man who founded Russia, right? His sons would go on to found Kiev and the other main states of Russia and Ukraine, right? This is my cousin Joanne of Austria. She looked just like my grandma. And this is King James' daughter, right? The Queen of Bohemia, Elizabeth. This is the primitive said Kievian Rus founders, right? So Russian icon of Saint Vladimir and his sons, the Passion Bearers, Boris and Gleb, who Gleb is the one responsible for that beautiful mosque in Russia with all the black paintings in it in Kiev, right? That was orchestrated by Boris and Gleb, but Gleb is basically the one that allowed that to be finished and everything. And they were killed by their brother. I don't know how to pronounce his name. Svlaktplok. I don't know. The accused. These are just some more guys, as I was showing you before. Franks, Normans, Bourbon rulers. So we got Henry VIII, Prince Louis de la Bourbon, right? Louis II, the prince. We got Henry the 15th here. I mean, Louis the 15th, Louis the 16th, William the Conqueror, Henry the 4th, Roy of France, right? Where that word Roy comes from. King James, of course, and Louis the 14th, the most famous Louis of them all, right? So that's that. And then we know that Esau comes during the Renaissance and changes all of these images and everything. So,
right.
Let's get the history video because he can make it sound a little bit better than me. More interesting, so I ain't falling asleep and stuff. Hold on a second. Y'all put a 7 in the chat one more time if you following. If it's making sense. Let's watch this one first. Can y'all see that?
Nope. Don't have it up.
That's crazy. Okay. Oh, you see it now.
There we go.
I know you see it. All right.
A medieval state known to those who lived in it as the Empire of the Romans occupies a seminal role in the histories of many parts of the world. Known for its splendorous art and architecture and its theological, legal, and philosophical contributions, Byzantium was an empire of historical contradictions. One of these is its very identity. While the Byzantine Empire was the successor state to ancient Rome, an imperium associated with the Latin language and culture, its territories were concentrated in regions where Greek was the lingua franca. You
see, that's why they're confused. That's why they're calling it a place of contradictions. Because the Romans, right, Alexander, Philip, they didn't speak Greek. They were Latin speakers. They made Latin the lingua franca. So why are these people who are supposed to be inheriting their kingdom going back to a language that was, finished being spoken? You're supposed to be stopped. They're supposed to put to an end to Greek, right? Koine. But we don't went back to it. It's because we were the people that started Koine. We wanted to go back to our language, not the language of our oppressors, right? We just had the Maccabees pull up. We had John Hyrcanus in there. And then they lose the throne, and then we get Septimius Severus. Nah, 3 strikes you out. We realize, okay, we need to go back to our stuff. So that's the beginning of the contradiction to the historians, because they don't realize these are black people unless they deep dive into it. Then once they get to realizing that, they stop teaching it.
Form of Orthodox Christianity, the vehicle with which it influenced Eastern Europe, used Greek as its primary liturgical language. This form of the Roman Empire shifted to using the Greek language and culture, and is nowadays seen as part of Greek history. The question thus arises.
See? So the Byzantine Empire, instead of being part of Roman history, it's now part of Greek history. Why is that? Because the Greeks that took this as their history were the Israelites that founded Greece. They're the same people that founded the Byzantine Empire. They were the ones that were the slaves to the Romans. They were the ones fighting as the Spartans. They were the ones in the Colosseums, right?
How much did the Byzantine Empire...
You see how they even use the iconoclasm here? They give him afros, but they make him light-skinned? It don't make no sense. He knows what he's doing.
It's crazy.
He knows what he's doing.
Right.
associate with the ancient Greeks. On the one hand, the Eastern Roman Empire of the Middle Ages was in many ways the inheritor of classical Greco-Roman culture. Still, on the other hand,
when you watch the Hercules movie, the people on the vases don't look like that. They're pitch black.
And Byzantine Christianity was traditionally seen as hostile to ancient Greek wisdom. In this episode, we will unpack these contradictions.
It being hostile to ancient Greek wisdom is why we had to have these councils to see what was going to be put in and what was going to be taken out. And as he gets further through this video, he's going to actually point that out. How we had actual theologians and stuff like that, like Gregory and St. John, right? They're not the St. John from the Bible, but a different St. John. They're actually going through, with like Jerome and all these different people, and they're trying to figure out what do we take from our Greek myths and stuff like that and incorporate into this. One of the things they took was the mysticism and personification of demons, right? The Bible don't say demons got long claws and ugly faces and big ass eyes and they got wings like gargoyles.
Right.
But we did that as the Greeks, and then we carried that over through Christianity, right? That was one of the things we spoke about at these councils. He's going to mention that though, right? But he's not going to tell you was the Israelites doing it. You have to put those pieces together yourself, which is what we did for this lesson.
We'll see how Hellenization unfolded in Byzantine language, culture, ethnicity, and politics, and how this Hellenism interacted with other components of Byzantium's worldview universalisms like Christianity and Roman identity.
And we know anytime they talk about Hellenism when it comes to Christianity and Roman identity, we know who they're talking about. The Hellenes, which are who? The Israelite Gentiles.
That's right.
Welcome to our video on the process of Hellenization in Byzantium and its impact on the Eastern Romans. This week, our YouTube members and patrons will continue watching our series on the Iberian Reconquista, with the video on the Battle of Sagrajas, the engagement that allowed the Punic Wars, Russian Revolution. Finally, Byzantium is meant to have transitioned into the use of Greek language.
That is the Primucid Empire's eagle. This is not the eagle of the Byzantine Empire. They didn't have an eagle on their flag. It was a cross with a weird-looking bee, right? This eagle is a sect of the Byzantine Empire after they become the Holy Roman Empire once they go further north. But it's only associated with us. The Romans did not use this. The Byzantines, or the Black Romans, used this.
And culture in administration in the 6th to 8th centuries CE. This conception is usually also accompanied by a shift
that's 500 to 700 century
in perception. Byzantium became Greek in identity after this period. However, the trajectory with which this has happened is more complex, as is the question of identity. In order to understand how the Hellenization of Byzantium unfolded, we must first look at Greco-Roman relations in earlier periods to have a historical foundation of this process. By the time the capital of the Roman Empire was moved to Constantinople in 330 CE, Greece and Rome had been in a paradoxical relationship for centuries. Rome had annexed Greece nearly 400 years earlier in one...
He's not going to read this, but it says it. For many Romans, colloquial Hellenistic koine was linked to enslaved doctors from Greece. He didn't read that, but he put it in a little square so you can see that's going to disappear real quick, right? Who are these Hellenistic enslaved doctors from Greece?
Right.
Israelites. Hellenized Israelites. Right? What do they mean, doctors? Like people that put you back together? No. Doctors of the law. Doctors of the language. These are the people that put everything back together, the ones that we talked about, that I just showed you pictures of, right? They were once enslaved, now they're not. But this is the way he wants to tell the story because he got millions of followers and stuff like that, right? And he probably got producers that don't want them to tell everybody our history. They wanted to make it seem like it's theirs because he is European. You know what I mean? So, yeah. But as you see, he's putting it in a little box. This is beginning with the Hellenistic Koine-speaking Romans from Greece, not Rome. These are the people that was there before. Even though at the beginning he made it seem like it's all a contradiction and we don't know where they came from.
146 BCE, and some of its elites had bouts of anti-Greek sentiment due to their supposed weakness. But equal numbers of others had admiration for Greece. In fact, when Emperor Constantine moved the capital of the empire to Byzantium,
we see that's not Emperor Constantine. We see what he looks like. Right? I showed you guys Emperor Constantine a second ago. You see the image of Constantine put up there, right?
The future site of the city of Constantinople.
And yes, by the way, Constantine is who moved the capital to the place that they called the Purple Land of the Black people, the Byzantium, right? Byzantine came from Constantine.
He also commissioned a relief of the Gigantomachy, the battle of the Olympians and giants from Greek mythology, to be.
They don't tell you that part, right? When they look up the Council of Nicaea and everything, they don't tell you that that Constantine allowed the commissioning of the belief of the Anunnaki, whatever it's called, right? Which is the fighting between the giants and the titans, or the titans and the gods, right? Which me and Aharon was talking about that the other day. He was like, yo, you should find out about this. And lo and behold, the Most High sent me the video. So we see Constantine even incorporates the following of the giants. That's why we still get taught that crap in school with the titans and everything, and Hercules and stuff. Because all these New Age Romans did was steal our society, our culture, our way of teaching people, and pervert it. Just like they did back then. They taught our education style to us in a perverted way with their history, right? On our faces. It's just crazy.
Be displayed in the city. Moreover, throughout the apex of the classical Roman Empire, both Greek and Latin were considered languages of education.
You see how similar they look? This is the English alphabet, which the Latin alphabet, is used. And then we got the Greek alphabet, which looks very similar to the Latin alphabet because all they did was steal our letters. They tell you that the Phoenicians sold the alphabet to everybody, right? Who you think helped the Phoenicians make the alphabet? You see, by the time we get Carthage or get the Byzantine Empire, Carthage is actually working with us, right? So something to keep in mind.
And prestige, and many Roman elites were fluent in both tongues. The Romans preferred the version of Greek culture which existed prior to Alexander the Great's Eastern invasions, after which they perceived Greek culture to have been corrupted by what they saw as the hedonism of Eastern cultures like Persia. This meant that many Romans saw themselves as superior to the current form of Greek culture. The structure of the Roman Empire was based around Latin, which was the language of the state and the elites. However, while Latin predominated at the highest levels of government and multilingualism was the norm in the Roman Empire, Greek was still one of the most influential languages in Roman society.
So now you see why Paul spoke multiple languages.
God.
He was from Tarshish. He was a Pharisee, so he was of the elite, the separate ones, right? That's what Pharisee means. And it's already a thing in our society to speak multiple languages. You have to speak Latin and Greek. If you're an Israelite, what are you doing? You're speaking Latin, Greek, and Hebrew. Because they were speaking Greek before Latin, they started the language, right? Any Israelite that was going to trade with Javan, as we see in Ezekiel 27 since the time of Solomon, they knew Greek. And then Latin comes around. We already know Hebrew. So it's not difficult to see how we were speaking 3 languages at that time. 2 of them we created.
Particularly as a lingua franca, or common tongue, in the eastern provinces like Egypt, Syria, and Anatolia. Throughout late antiquity, the western half of the Roman Empire declined, while the economic and cultural hub of the Roman world increasingly shifted to the Greek-speaking East, resulting in the Greek language rising further in prominence on the world stage. This era also coincided with the rise of Christianity, a religion which, in its early days, had a contradictory relationship with classical Greek culture. Many early church fathers, like Gregory of Nazianzus, used Greek philosophy and logic.
He made Gregory black. Why he do that? You know why he had to do that? Because ain't no white pictures of Gregory. They forgot to iconoclast his black ass. How about that? So he got to make Gregory black. But you see, he made Constantine white because they got a bunch of white images of Constantine.
In their theology, but were also wary of possible temptations like lapsing from Christianity that could arise if one became too immersed in Greek culture. The first few centuries.
I bet people watch this and didn't ask no questions. Why did he make Gregory black? He been showing white people this whole video. I'm sure the Versace logo has something to do with us. I ain't never actually looked that in. Like I've never looked into that. But the snakes, I'm sure, got something to do with Dan. I wouldn't put it past him. I actually need that. That's something I need to look into now. Medusa, all that might got something to do with us. You know what I'm saying? Medusa might be some Israelite queen or something that they made that they didn't like. I don't know.
The Eastern Roman Empire was somewhat paradoxical. On one hand, Latin remained the language of the elite and public administration, but Greek was rapidly outpacing it in prestige. Moreover, due to Christian influence, things which were considered to be classically Greek were associated negatively with paganism. Yet classic Greek literature was a source of philosophical inspiration and enrichment, which meant...
So certain people that were trying to carry on the way that the Romans were thinking, right? They would look at Greek as a lower language, right? And anything that came with Greek as, you know, something of a lower vibration. And then there was the other sect that was trying to incorporate Greek into things with us. So that was the split. And we're going to see certain rulers, you know, basically did like a seesaw effect, what they was going to bring in and what they was going to keep out. Some were real lenient with the Greek knowledge, and some were just completely against it. And that's how we end up confused, because all of them got to rule and all of them got to put their doctrines in and enact a little bit of whatever they wanted to do. So it's a whole melting pot of BS now, right? And all the Edomites did, instead of deciphering through the BS, they brought all of it to us and called it Christianity now and Catholicism. And they teach everything these niggas was arguing about. They teach it all to us at once, from kindergarten to school and a little bit on Sunday. That's why everybody's confused. That's part of the crafty council. They learned all the crap we was learning about and teaching each other and coming up with through our time in rulership, and they teach it all to us at once, right? Some of y'all spirits are connected to that crap because you was following it back in the day, right? That which was is what shall be done. Ain't nothing new under the sun. So some of them get caught up in it again, right?
Many early Christians drew upon to form the bedrock of their faith. Despite these contradictions, classical Greek language and culture continued to rise in prominence, and by the time of Emperor Justinian, the Eastern Roman Empire had shifted from Latin to Greek.
How that white boy get all them braids and the beads, bro? That don't even make no sense. He got to be black.
This process would only accelerate after the end of late antiquity. Officially, it was during the reign of Emperor Justinian in the 6th century CE that the Hellenization of the Eastern Roman or Byzantine Empire began. Justinian himself was not a Hellenizer, and his legal codex was mostly written in Latin. However, his post-534 CE legislation was codified in both Latin and Greek, reflecting the slow linguistic shift which had been occurring ever since the capital of the empire had been moved from Rome to Constantinople. As the Greek language became the primary language of the Eastern Roman Empire after Justinian's reign, classical Greek culture endured within it too. Several of Justinian's successors utilized symbolism from classical Greek myths to promote their legitimacy. For example, reliefs and art from the period depict
images like Erotus and Olympians continued to appear during this period, but as cultural vogue, right? So, and then they got the story of Hercules, right? They got him black, but the dude they about to show, Heraclius, he's a black man, right? A black king of the Byzantine Empire. Even they show him black on the internet and everything. Got coins of him looking like a nigga and all that type of stuff. And he actually tells you in his story, right? In the story about him, in the epilogues and stuff they write about him, that he's a descendant of the original Heracles, right? Which is why he took his name. Which would mean he's saying he a Danite, right?
The Byzantine Emperor Heraclius as the iconic hero Heracles from Greek mythology. Due to the upheavals caused by the Islamic conquests, Byzantine society shifted dramatically during this period. It became more feudal and more focused on the cause of Anatolia and the Balkans. A further shift occurred with the conquests of the Islamic caliphates. The Arabs took over the Syriac and Coptic-speaking centers of Syria and Egypt, reducing the linguistic diversity of Eastern Rome and leaving the Greek-speaking hub of Constantinople as its last major cultural hub. After the Arab conquests, many of Eastern Rome's ethnic minorities were now under Muslim rule, leaving the Byzantine.
So we got the Muslim people, taking over the Byzantines, right? And then we end up speaking. Hold on, he's gonna mention the Slavs. That's what we're gonna get into today's stuff.
Speaker at that. This increasing association of the Roman identity to Greekness often came at the detriment of other ethnicities, like Armenians and Slavs.
So he just finished explaining that the Ishmaelite people that were pulling up, right, to try to conquer us and stuff and work with us to enslave the white people, they knew us as Romans that spoke Greek, not Latin, right? So when they met white people that spoke Latin, they automatically went into captivity. They weren't looking at them as Romans. Which is why, Slavs and Armenians were subjugated. Armenians spoke Latin. The Slavs spoke that Slavic language we just heard about in the last video, right? So neither one of them being Greek, automatic slavery. As soon as they open their mouth and start talking, Ishmael hit him in the mouth with the butt of the sword. And when his mouth started bleeding, he put the handcuffs on him and, throw him on the ship and take him to Dan. Go get some bread.
Who still lived in Byzantine territory well after the Islamic expansions. The contradiction was that Roman citizenship was meant to break through ideas of lineage and descent for those who were not enslaved after the 3rd century CE. However, Orthodox Christianity and even the Greek language
says various ethnicities like Slavs and Jews maintained a sort of communal autonomy in the Byzantine or in Byzantium, subject to imperial scrutiny and control. He's lying about the Jews part because the Jews were the Byzantines, right? They weren't scrutinizing any Jews. That was against the rules. What was happening though was Slavs did get a little form of autonomy. We're going to see that in the next video because they actually even got to move up a little bit in the ranks. Actually, it's going to say it in this one. They got to move up as time went on, right? That's how they start to become kings and rulers and vassals and all that type of stuff. And once, as vassals, they get their little group of bandits, they all start to take over little by little until they could form their bigger armies to take over the big armies, right?
Started to become signifiers of being Roman, in essence hijacking the civic form of Roman citizenship in favor of one based more on ethnicity. Over the 6th to 9th centuries,
So after a while, we got tired of them, doing certain things with us, moving up in society, and we literally made you being a Roman in the Byzantine Empire about ethnicity. That's how they end up dying the way that they did. Feel what I'm saying? So
process continued as the language of administration continued shifting from Latin to Greek. This was the case even in southern Italy, where the Byzantines maintained provinces well into the Middle Ages. There, a Greek-speaking population existed, being the ancestors of the Greco and Calabrian Greek speakers that still inhabit southern Italy to this day. As Byzantium's identity shifted from being a multi-ethnic empire to a primarily Greek polity, its neighbors also began to shift their perception of Byzantium. States like the Carolingians or the Arabs used the word Roman to describe Byzantium, but equally saw it as the land of the Greeks. As the self-perception of the Byzantines shifted, the meaning of Rome became synonymous with the Greek language and culture. Let us now discuss how Hellenic culture impacted Orthodox Christianity. As we previously stated, Christianity and Hellenism in the Byzantine Empire had a strained relationship, as the latter was considered synonymous with being pagan. So how did the two interact and reconcile each other? The first means were educational. Many Christian monks and priests in Byzantium were educated in Greek. As early as the 4th century CE, many recognized and tried to resolve the tension between Greek and Christian philosophical thought. Both Basil of Caesarea and Gregory Nazianzus tried to identify which things were good about Greek thought, and thus worthy of adoption into Christian thinking. They also tried to identify which things were bad from a Christian perspective and discard them. Gregory placed emphasis on Athens with its many philosophical schools, calling it a golden city of letters, and one where the temptation of paganism was strong.
You see, so certain of them understand the difficulties when it comes to having to teach our people with, paganism right next door and everything like that. So people like Gregory and other folks would try to incorporate it, right? While others would basically shun it and completely try to shut it down. So different kings, as I was trying to explain to y'all earlier, would basically choose which route they wanted to go. And eventually we end up with this big old cluster of doctrines.
Other 4th century Christian theologians, like Eusebius of Caesarea, advocated for a more hardline rejection of all classic Greek philosophy in Christianity.
So he was one of the guys that was like, nah, forget all this Zeus and Hercules. I don't even want them in there for culture. If them dudes want to be like that, they could go move somewhere else. They don't need to be around us. They could just, we Christians over here, we follow Christ. So it was that group, and then it was the other people, right?
Showing.
Notice they made they made Basil white, they made Eusebius white, and they're the two that want the Bible to be, straight Christian. And then the black guy that wants to they made Gregory, right? They made Gregory the black guy who wants to incorporate the paganism. See how they do that? I'm catching you guys, kings and generals. I'm seeing how y'all do. You're very racist with the scholarship and the pictures.
That the attitude that early Christians in the Byzantine Empire had towards classical Greek culture were diverse, tense, and divided. By the later Byzantine period of the 9th century CE onwards, the liturgical language of the empire had almost exclusively become Greek, at least in the major Byzantine core territories. Thus, many priests and monks had begun to tackle the challenge of reconciling the two cultural traditions. One such man was the Byzantine hieromonk Michael Psellos in the 11th century CE. Psellos was a major yet controversial figure, having been educated in the Byzantine Ivy League, the Pandidactyrion of Constantinople. Psellos placed heavy emphasis on the Hellenistic philosophical tradition of Neoplatonism. Many scholars had done this before and would do so since, but Psellos was a clear departure from previous theologians in how much emphasis he put on the importance of.
See, so Paul told us, be careful with philosophy and vain deceit, right? And a lot of our guys didn't do it. They moved on with the philosophy. The philosophy he was talking about was the fact that our people were full of the philosophy of the Greeks because we started it, right? That's why it was ingrained in us, because we were the ones that were basically giving them the wisdom for them to start their philosophy, right? That's how it worked. Just like we gave the Muslims the wisdom to start the Quran. It always starts with us, right? So that's it for that video. Let's get into the Slavs, and then we're going to get up out of here. Just to show you guys how we end up taking them down real quick. See, everybody left, so y'all must not have liked history. It is what it is, though. It's 17 of y'all that like to know where we come from. Y'all haven't seen this? Everybody that left's not going to get to know where this comes from now. Know what I mean? You ever seen coats of arms of black people with Edomites holding them with hairy ass bodies? That's cold to me. I want something like that on my wall at my house. I want a license plate like this. You know what I'm saying? But hey, you know. Crazy stuff. But check this video out real quick. Yeah, you're never gonna see it again either, Don. Never gonna see it again, sis. All right, this is the video right here. Hold on. All right.
Servitude. Thus, although we unfortunately lack the and was to be sold into servitude, where was she doomed to go? To the harems of a drunken Baghdad emir, or to the kitchens of a wrathful Constantinopolitan duke? As the
Oh, what? So, mind you, we just spoke about Ishmael taking over, right? And Dan and Judah and like enslaving these people, right? So he starts this video talking about a Slavic princess gets taken into captivity, and he says, where's she gonna go? To some emir, meaning some Ishmaelite king or ruler, or to some Jute, which is a Israelite Anglo-Saxon from Germany, right?
goddess. She was captured by a Norseman who destroyed her village and was to be
Northman, right? Norman, Dan.
Sold into servitude. Where was she doomed to go? To the harems of a drunken Baghdad emir, or to the kitchens of a wrathful Constantinopolitan duke? As the boats arrived to ferry her away, Lana despaired. She would never see her homeland again. This imaginary story is reflective of the late antique and early medieval slave trade of Northern and Eastern Europe. Many people, including Slavs, were captured and sold into slavery in various parts of the early medieval world. In this episode, we will provide an overview of how this trade operated, who was involved, and the impact it had on the enslaved. Welcome to our video on the Slavic slave trade and its gruesome details. Most people today are now free from the threat of capture and enslavement, but while you physically can't be sold, everything about you still can be. Your data can be taken and traded easier than ever, and that's why you need to protect yourself with our sponsor today, Nord. Just be along.
All right.
It extends an appendage of a vast Eurasian.
Now look, remember what I told y'all, right? He's showing the migration backwards, but look at where they're at. I told you they come from the Caucasus. They're gonna be like over here, right? They pull up, go through the Ural Mountains. Now we got the Khazars, right? And we see them moving. These are the ones that went up there to Denmark and stuff, become the Fingal Vikings and everything, right? These are the ones that moved down the Danube and the Danester and all that stuff, right? So we're going to see them move and where they went.
Trading network that existed in the Middle Ages. It extended from the Nordic peoples of Scandinavia to the mighty empires of Eastern Rome and the Abbasid Caliphate.
It started with the Nordic people of Scandinavia. Who's that? Dan. Then the people of Byzantium. Who's that? See, that's their flag, the cross with the B that I was telling you about. That's Judah, right? The red and the gold, Pharez and Zerah, right? And Abbasid.
And affected all peoples that lay,
which is Ishmael.
Between. Alongside other goods such as honey, wax, silk, and furs, human chattel, often captured from among the Slavic peoples of Eastern Europe, was one of the most prominent products carried up and down the mighty continental rivers connecting the Romans and Arabs to the Viking world. Before we dive into the story of how the Slavic slave trade emerged, we must first address the sensitivity of the topic and make some disclaimers and clarifications. One thing that must be addressed is that the Slavic slave trade is a bit of a misnomer, as it was not exclusively targeted at Slavs per se. Many Finns, for instance, were also trafficked. Another thing that must
Who we just said was trafficked?
Said Finns.
Didn't we just prove they're the same people? You see how history tries to do this?
God.
We were only enslaving them. You understand? They're the ones that keep changing their names through history to try to make it seem like we don't know who he was talking about, or these are all different people. They're not. We saw in the first video where the guy said the Slavic people and all these folks are related. They all come from one common ancestor. Who's that? Esau.
To be clarified is that while slavery is a despicable practice no matter the epoch, people's understanding of slavery and what defines a slave can be dramatically different based on different cultural contexts. In this, the Slavic slave trade was fundamentally different from the Atlantic slave trade, with which the modern Western audience is more familiar. Unlike the enslavement of black Africans during the colonial era, the justification for the enslavement of Slavs during this period were mostly religious, not ethnic, which is why no distinct ethnic group.
Now, we see that that's a lot, because in the video he just did a minute ago when we were talking about the Byzantines, right? He made sure to tell us that at a point, to be Roman was based off ethnicity. So anybody that wasn't ethnically Roman was getting sold into slavery. Didn't he say that? And then he said specifically that that would make certain groups subjugated, like the Slavs and the Armenians. He didn't say that because of their religion. He said it because they were Slavs and Armenians and not considered Roman, right? Ain't that what he said?
Yeah.
This is the same dude that made the last video. This is the same channel, right? So we see how history, while they tell the story, they continue to contradict because they don't want to connect the dots to prove to you what is what. It is based off of them being Slavs. Had nothing to do with their religion. Because we just saw we were confused on our religion too. We're incorporating paganism. So it had nothing to do with that. They were getting put in slavery because they were the white people. Right? Which he's going to explain that when it gets to Ishmael. Ishmael got a word for them, just like we got the word Slav. And our word Slav means white slave. And whatever the word Ishmael going to use mean white slave. He going to explain that to us. Does white slave denote their religion or their ethnicity?
Right.
Okay.
Groups descending from Slavic enslaved peoples exist in the Middle East or Southern Europe, unlike in the Americas. Thus, while Slavs were likely the majority of slaves during the early medieval period, this was not specifically because they were ethnic Slavs or spoke Slavic languages. The timeline of human trafficking...
He can't prove that.
Right.
We could prove that. We could prove the opposite.
in early medieval Eastern Europe is a bit unclear. Our best approximation for the beginning of organized slave routes seems to stem from when the Slavs began to descend into southern Europe and formed their...
So he starts it from Scandinavia, right? He doesn't tell you how to get to Scandinavia. This is another thing I don't like. That's why we had to play both videos to show you guys, right? They got to Scandinavia through the Caucasus Mountains. Then through the Ural Mountains. Then they move up to Scandinavia. Then they run into Dan. We start selling them. So what happens when the people start losing wars? They become subjugated. What's their first option to do? Move, right? So what do they do in mass? They move. They start having a little nomadic excursions out of Scandinavia. And this is why he's saying we see them moving south. No, it's because they were trying to get away from Dan. The problem is we moved them right into the Holy Roman Empire, which is our people, right? You got France right next door, our people. Poland, Hungary, Croatia, Kievan Rus, our people. And then Byzantine right here. They ran right into Israel. Right? That's what happened. And then they become, you know, basically eternal slaves for this time period. The dark
communities called Slavic.
The Dark Ages, right? An age where they're just slaves.
During the 7th century CE, the rise of various Western Slavic kingdoms in the 8th to 9th centuries CE.
And you see England, it's a good map here, right? The way we did it, we come from Israel, we go to Greece, right? Got Isles of the Gentiles, we move up from Byzantium, right? I told you once Ishmael pull up, we start moving up here, Hungary, Poland, Croatia, Russia, right? Start the Holy Roman Empire out here. Once we start that, we start moving into Ireland, England, France, right? All these things. You see how it works? You see how it works? Dan starts up here. They come up here through here. Once they get all the way to Denmark, they start to move down and start to take over this. So, and then eventually they come from here. And then they start taking over Judah in England, Ireland, Scotland, and Wales. Right? That's the Norman conquest of 1066. They weren't conquesting Edomites. Dan conquested Judah and Benjamin. Right? So this is how it started, though.
Such as the Premyslid dynasty in Bohemia, saw many
Premyslid dynasty in Bohemia
battles in which tribes on the losing side were enslaved.
We saw battles with our brothers in Poland. We would fight our own people, and losing side would be enslaved. Would we be enslaving our own people, or would we be enslaving our people's slaves?
Their Eastern Slavic brethren were likely subject to slave raids as early as the 8th century CE, as during this time, the word sakaliba began to appear in some Islamic areas, which is...
Sakaliba is the word for white slave, and Slav is our word for white slave.
It's a name used for either white or Slavic enslaved peoples.
Do you see? Did I make that up, or did he just say that?
He said it.
Okay.
Moreover, the Scandinavian rulers of local Eastern Slavonic fiefdoms, such as the nobles of the Kievan Rus, were known to conduct raids and enslave each other's people and send them off to the slave markets for a macabre profit.
Now, you said the Premyslid, the people of Poland, right? The Bohemians, the Kievan Rus, that's all, Jake. We're fighting each other and putting each other's slaves in slavery. Watch.
The main reason many Slavs were targeted was due to them being pagan during this period. Christianity and Islam have legislation against enslaving one's own religious brethren, but often...
So those movies where you see us putting, like where you see Danes putting other Danes in captivity because they lost a war, wasn't like that. We will be putting their slaves in captivity. Now you don't get a working class. You got to do everything yourself. You got to get some more slaves. You come work with us. You could join our army. We could become one army, and our slaves will still be your slaves. Or you could go get your own because we just beat you. Those are. They're coming with us. That's how it worked. Right? He just told you we had legislation. We can't sell our own people.
Protections for peoples who practiced what they saw as heathenry. Thus, the pagan Slavs were a prime target for both Christian and Muslim slave traders. The enslavement of
This is also proof that when we're closer to knowing the law without the full extent of the whole, our people doing us like, or not our people, but the Edomites and stuff like that, like, giving us the crafty counsel to not teach us the way the Bible's supposed to be understood. When we're closer to the real understanding of it, we know that we could treat our brothers like our brothers and we could treat the heathen like heathen. We made legislation to be able to do that. But nowadays, the Christians are teaching you everybody got to be treated the same.
Right.
And we're looked at as the bad guys for doing exactly what our people did back then when we were in control. That's how you know this is us.
Slavs was primarily due to this, and perhaps one of the reasons why the various Slavic peoples of Europe Christianized in later centuries. However, not all enslaved.
They Christianized because they was getting put into captivity, and it was going to be the way for them to get cool with us to be able to move up in the ranks. Esau got smart.
If peoples taken from Eastern Europe were pagan. Sometimes Christians who practiced a variant of the faith considered heretical to the church were fair game as well. One example of this was followers of the elusive Bosnian church, forsaken by both Catholicism and Orthodoxy. Moreover,
Bosnian church wasn't us. That was them. Understand? But we were still putting them in captivity. He's trying to put the narrative or push the narrative that it was, Bosnians putting their own people in cap. No, we were in control of the Bosnians. They wanted to start a church that wasn't exactly like our church. It was more like the Russian Orthodox church without all the black pictures, right? And, we made them what they are.
The slavers from Venice and Genoa often justified the enslaving of Christian Slavs of the Crimea due to supposed impiety. As the economy of Europe became more feudal, slavery's role declined, which is something we've made a video with.
You see, Dan with all the money, because they the ones doing all the shipping. like you know how Amalek got all the bread from the slave trade because he was doing all the insuring of the ships? Huh? Dan was Amalek during the Slavic slave trade, right? They know all the waterways, they got all the boats, you know what I'm saying? They control it, they running things.
However, in Eastern Europe and the Islamic world, a niche for slavery remained, and the slave trade routes continued to operate, such as the ones that traveled through Prague and the Danube, the Balkan and Adriatic coasts, and the Volga and Caspian Sea routes.
My last name is actually a last name for Norse traders. So I might have been a slave master to, you know, crackers or my ancestors back in the day, right? I think that's hilarious.
Throughout the medieval empires of Eurasia, specific urban and rural roles were reserved for enslaved peoples, like housework and guild work in Byzantium, or admission into harems and eunuch soldier units in the Islamicate world. Slavs.
So we making them cook and work and build stuff. Ishmael just trying to have sex with the slaves. Like what they get in their kingdom, like 100 boy servants or something like that, 100,000, like something crazy, right? More boys than girls. and there's no new thing under the sun. This whole time they was just making us ship them little white people so that they could have sex with them. I know he's showing a girl here, but I guarantee you they was doing this to the boys too.
Probably made up the majority of slaves in these empires, but many Finnic peoples also joined them in indenturement.
Who? Meaning who?
Majority of slaves in these empires, but many Finnic peoples also joined them in indenturement.
Why they keep only talking about Slavic and Finnic people? That's the white folks, guys. You got the Khazars pretending to be Jewish up there in the mountains. They're white merchants. They're also trading each other. But aside from them, everybody else is Slavic or Finnic. That's it. And they've got their little Slavic Finnic tribes. They all split up and scattered and stuff. Every time one of them falls, they all get put in slavery. Right?
Moreover, Christians and Muslims often enslaved one another. So it was not uncommon for there to be Arab Muslim slaves in Byzantium and Greek Christian slaves in the Caliphate.
And then sometimes Ishmael would enslave us and we would enslave Ishmael. So we got, slave markets got us in it, but not from us, from Ishmael. Slave markets got Ishmael in it, but not from Ishmael, from us. And then everybody's selling Esau.
The total number of people enslaved during this era is unclear, but these raids continued for centuries. Thus, the human toll was definitely immense. There were a few ways in which people in Eastern Europe were enslaved. The biggest one was through war. If a local dynasty went to war, it was common to capture and enslave people as a spoil of war. This is like...
Ain't that what we did in the Bible? Wasn't that sanctioned? That was allowed, right? All of the biblical concubines were women that we took as spoils of war. How many concubines Solomon had? Like 320 or something? 330?
Likely where the bulk of slave labor was acquired. Thus, we can assume that big wars were then followed by an influx of enslaved people entering the slave markets. However, large-scale warfare was not the only means by which the Slavic people were enslaved. As previously mentioned, Southern and Eastern Slavs were stuck between major powers, which considered them heathens, so targeted raids by various Islamic and Christian states were sometimes carried out, usually in places like Bosnia and Ukraine. The Scandinavians were also active slave raiders, plying down the Dnieper and Don rivers in their longboat.
Dnieper, Don, and the Danester over here, right?
To capture their pounds of flesh. Enterprising Saracen, Venetian, and Viking raiders conducted raids for centuries. These raids would continue even after Christianity was firmly established among the Slavic kingdoms of Eastern Europe.
So even after we fully established our kingdoms, we done got Kiev off the track, we done built Russia, we done, like, probably at the time we got Belarus, right? The land of the rowers. Because who was doing the rowing? Us in the longboats, like the white boy just said, right? Down the Dnieper, the Don, and the Danube rivers.
Islamic states like the Crimean Khanate arose and became infamous for their slave markets. Violence was not the only means to acquire enslaved people in the early medieval era, as debt slavery was a thing in the legal codices of various states, with the
debt slavery was a thing in the legal codices of various states for their people, because we had a thing of indentured servitude for our people. If you had a debt, you could pay your debt off by going into servitude. You have a year of jubilee. Once that year comes, you free. That's it.
The Eastern Roman Empire being a prominent example. This was another likely source of some enslavement amongst Slavic peoples, particularly those who migrated to Eastern Roman territories in southeastern Europe. The range of the slave trade was massive, spanning from Al-Andalus in Iberia to Byzantium to Central Asia. It traversed through various...
So, how did all these Asian people get light skin and stuff? Alexander wasn't going all the way to Asia, China, and all that. Well, they had something called the Silk Road. You know, Asians, they never had a problem having sex with their slaves. And we were selling them slaves for a very long time. A lot of white people went through Asia. And some of them moved up and became prominent over there too. Right? But a lot of white people went through Asia. So that's how it began.
Various continental waterways like the Volga River, Black Sea, Adriatic Sea, and Danube River. Regional players like the Volga Bulgars were key players in controlling the trade. Cities that straddled these waterways, like Prague or Kiev, were likely hubs of the trade. The fact that many Slavic states were either small or loosely organized meant that these cities drew most of the enslaved people. After being captured in their homelands, enslaved peoples were most likely transported along the rivers to Eastern European cities like Kiev, before being shipped to a bigger slave market.
You see? So we just take them and ship them. The things that they did to us, they learned from us. And believe we kept records of all that stuff, you know. Ezra taught us to keep everything in writing, and we did. And then, you know, that was kind of to our detriment, because not only did we write everything down, it was written down in a way that they could understand it, in the language they could understand. Therefore, they were able to fully read exactly what we did to them, how we did it, the ways we did it, and perfect it in a way that it would work for themselves against us. And that's how a lot of the overthrowing happened, because they were already put in a place where, you know, they could start to take that stuff from us. So we could stop the lesson there, because I don't want the numbers to drop no more.
All praises. Hey, that was, see, history, you know, some people say that, you know, world history has nothing to do with the Bible. That doesn't make any sense. You know what I'm saying? Because the Bible is a history book. So bringing out all this information is vital. Hey, that's yeah, those are nice. Those are nice pictures right there. Bringing out this information is vital for our people, right? We weren't just some outcasts swinging on trees. We actually invented and created and had monarchies and had empires, and you know, our problem was we just wasn't keeping the Most High's laws and commandments, and that's what we're trying to get back to now. So this is very vital and important for us to be able to absorb all this information. All praise to the Most High for Captain putting some of this stuff together. You know, I know he said earlier that you know, this is going to be a lesson where we're going to be dealing with history. So let us know. I mean, is this okay? How does everybody like this? Do you like this bit of history that we're bringing out? Put a 7 in the chat. If you would like to see more historical content that's regarding our people, you know, the chosen ones, right? Put a 7 in the chat if you'd like to see more information or more historical classes coming out. I know I wouldn't mind seeing some of it. I wouldn't mind seeing more. I can tell you that now. Octaves, thank you for that. I knew you would respond on that.
It just, I'm curious as to know, do Israelites give a damn about where they come from and how they lost their throne?
Con. That I've asked them. That's a question that I ask her. People is like they don't have. I'll say it this way: they don't even have the courage to want to know about where we come from, how this all got started. They're very comfortable dealing with what Esau has laid out for us today, and that blows my mind. I'm not even gonna say that no Diddy stuff because I don't even whatever. But the point is that they don't care. They don't care.
Let us know in the chat. If y'all want me to just do breakdowns, we could do that. I don't gotta. This was books. It takes time.
It takes time.
You know what I'm saying? Read them. You know what I mean? Like it's all type of pictures and words in here. Not even in English. You gotta translate them. You know what I'm saying? Like it's one of the books, History of Britain and the Britons, cost $650 by itself.
You know what's funny, Kat? What's funny? Check this out.
This ain't no stuff you just
I remember, I was one of those rare brothers who did like go into history. I minored in history, in college. So it was something that always amazed me. But I remember in high school, a lot of my friends couldn't stand history. You know why? Because it didn't show us. They force-fed us to believe all the crap that they created and brought out, for us to believe that King James was white, for us to believe that, those who ruled Europe were white. And we had to be taught how to be able to adapt and become civilized by them. So it's amazing to me that we'll sit there and take the force feeding from them to believe, and even today.
Watch the classes, you'll force feed, but when the brother showing you was actually these people that did all these things, nobody want to watch it.
God.
But it is what it is.
That shows you
won't see it.
Right, and that just proves who we are. We the lost sheep, But all praises, Captain. I thought it was a well thought out, very informative class. The great thing about this is that those who may have missed from the beginning, you can go back and replay it, take notes, teach your kids. That's the great thing about why we use YouTube and certain social media platforms just like it. But so with that, I think we have we're almost at the 3-hour mark. So we're gonna go ahead and close it out. But first, I'm gonna give some announcements. Any brothers who are wanting to put their brick in and do the work with the Anointed House of Saints, you can do so by by sending us an email at anointedhos@gmail.com. Please, in the subject line, put that you would want to be a part of the prospect phase, and we can get that information out to you when the next prospect phase will begin. All right. Also, want to remind everyone that we have feast days coming up. We have holidays, holy days coming up. Excuse me, right? Let's see, coming up pretty soon, right around the corner. We have the new moon, Feast of Trumpets, October 2nd. Anointed House of Saints will be recognizing that. Also, the Day of Atonement, which is on the 11th of October. And we will also be gathering for the Feast of Tabernacles, which will be taking place, which actually commences October 16th through the 20th. We will be gathering together on the 17th through the 20th in Greensboro, North Carolina. Lord willing, that comes about for that feast day. Also, want to remind everyone to keep sharing the classes, right? We have our classes all throughout the week. We start off with Milk Mondays with yours truly, and also the mighty Captain Eliel. But then but then on Wednesdays, we have the mighty Captain Yahawada with the Wild Out Wednesday classes. Thursday is the mighty Captain Yonatan with the Torah portion, which goes in depth into the law, something that we definitely need as a people to bring this kingdom, to get our kingdom back. And then, of course, we have our Friday night classes. Salakia. We have our Friday night Bible study and prayer call, right? Which is on a Zoom through the congregation. And then, of course, wrap it up on the Shabbat with the mighty Captain Aharon's Sabbath morning brew. I enjoy that class every Shabbat. Gets my Shabbat going off on a grand way. So we just want to have you guys continue to keep supporting, stay diligent in this word. I think we're gonna go ahead and get this Daniel 7 and 18, and then we can go ahead and let you guys go. So let me go ahead and grab that real quick for you. We can get on up out of here. All right. All praises to the Most High. And this is the book of Daniel, chapter 7, and verse 18, and it reads, "But the saints of the Most High shall take the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever, even forever and ever." All praises by Hashem and Mashiach Yahushua. All praises. Hey, next Monday, want to see you back. We're going to start all over again. But thank you again for coming out. This is another Milk Monday lesson. Great class lesson. I enjoyed it. Hope to see you again next Monday. This is Officer Knock, and of course, with the mighty...
The aristocrat.
The aristocrat. And with that, we're going to say shalom to all our family. See you on next Monday. Shalom. Shalom.
Shalom.
This is not a test.
Black skin, black sauce, black Jesus, black music, 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 black music, black music, black music, black music, black music, black music.